Story 1. I caught my parents on my security camera, planning to move my brother into my apartment while I was out of town. Once Cody's settled, Oscar won't dare to kick him out, Dad said. So I set them up and exposed some things at the family dinner. All right, Reddit. I need outside eyes on this. Grab your popcorn, enjoy the shit show, and tell me if I overreacted. I'm Oscar, 31 male, and I was halfway through debugging a clusterfuck of legacy code when I checked my apartment security feed and saw my parents letting themselves in. Normal Wednesday afternoon, right? I'd given them a spare key for emergencies. Except my dad was holding a tape measure. I watched through my phone as he started measuring my walls. Not just casually looking around, actively measuring. My mom was taking notes on her phone, doing that thing where she tilts her head and squints like she's imagining new furniture. Then my younger brother Cody walks in behind them like he owns the place. He was smirking. "This is perfect," Cody said, dropping onto my leather couch and putting his feet on my coffee table. "Way better than that dump I've been crashing at. And Oscar's never even here anyway. Always at the office." My mom nodded along, still taking notes. "We'll need to move the desk out of the second bedroom. That can be Cody's room. Oscar can work from the office like everyone else." "I'm sorry, what?" My dad measured the doorways, the hallway, the whole 9 yards. "Once Cody's stuff is moved in, Oscar won't make a scene. He'll understand family comes first. We just need to do it while he's in San Francisco for that conference next month." I sat there at my desk, watching these people plot to steal my apartment in real time, and I started laughing. That dead, cold laugh that makes your coworkers look at you like you've gone crazy. My business partner, Scott, glanced up from his monitor with this, "Should I be concerned?" expression. Maybe he should be, because I'd just watched my family plan a hostile takeover of my apartment, and instead of feeling shocked or hurt, I felt something else entirely. Relief. Because now I had them all on camera, and I was about to make them regret every single choice that led to this moment. See? I'm a software architect. I own 30% of a startup that just got Series B funding. I make good money. Real good money. And 6 months ago, after my mom borrowed my grandfather's vintage Rolex from my apartment, the only thing I had from my dad's father who actually gave a damn about me, I installed a full security system. Cameras. Motion sensors. The works. Found that Rolex 3 weeks later on Cody's wrist in an Instagram photo. He'd told his friends he bought it with his business earnings. Cody's business earnings consisted of whatever MLM scheme he was currently failing at while mom and dad funded his lifestyle. I'd been documenting everything since then. Every conversation, every time they chose Cody over me, every dismissive comment about how I should help family while Cody bled them dry. They'd just handed me enough evidence to bury them all. I texted my brother. "Hey man, want to grab dinner this weekend?" Been too long. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. They were probably conferring, wondering if I somehow knew. "Yeah, dude, sounds good. Mom and dad free too?" "Sure, bring everyone. I'll cook at my place Saturday." I had 4 days to prepare, 4 days to set the trap, and Cody, that smug jerk, walked right into it thinking he'd already won. I grew up in Seattle as the older son of Philip and Janet Kowalski. Dad ran a successful import business. Mom managed rental properties they owned. We had money. We had a nice house in Bellevue. We had everything, except I didn't have parents who saw me. I had investors who stopped investing the moment Cody was born. I was 8 when my brother arrived, and I went from firstborn to forgotten overnight. The responsible one. The one who didn't need help because he was so capable for his age. Funny how an 8-year-old becomes self-sufficient when nobody's watching anymore. Cody got basketball camp while I was told sports were a waste of time. He got a brand new Audi for his 16th birthday while I worked at Best Buy to buy my own used truck. I got into MIT and they suggested state school would be more practical. Cody barely graduated high school, and they celebrated like he'd cured cancer, bought him a condo near UW even though he dropped out after 1 semester. I worked my rear off through MIT, through years of grinding at tech companies, through building my own startup. 3 years ago, I bought this apartment in downtown Seattle. Corner unit, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. The whole flex. It was my proof that I didn't need their approval or their money. I'd given them the spare key because some pathetic part of me still wanted them to be proud of me. That key was about to cost them everything. The day after watching them measure my furniture, Cody texted me. "Hey bro, need to ask you something important." I smiled at my phone. "Sure, why don't you all come over Saturday? I'll make that Korean BBQ you guys like." I spent the next 4 days preparing, but not food. I was organizing evidence, financial records showing every loan I'd given Cody that he never repaid, Screenshots of the 7 different business ventures my parents had funded for him that all failed. Bank statements proving I'd paid for family dinners, vacations, gifts, while Cody contributed nothing and took everything. But the real work had been happening for months. See, Cody's current girlfriend Nicole had reached out to me 12 weeks ago through LinkedIn. Professional message, very polite. She'd noticed we had the same last name and took a shot. Turns out Cody had been using her credit cards to fund his latest business venture, some crypto trading course, MLM nonsense. He'd maxed out 3 of her cards, about $40,000 total, while telling her he was investing their money in a guaranteed opportunity. The opportunity was him buying bottle service at clubs and trying to recruit people into his downline. Nicole had receipts, all of them, and she'd been working with me to document everything because Cody had also told her that I was a trust fund kid who'd never worked a real day in my life. Meanwhile, he'd been telling my parents that Nicole's family was wealthy and he was networking for business opportunities. All lies. Nicole was a nurse working double shifts while Cody drained her accounts. But the best part? Cody had recently started listing my apartment as his business address for his LLC, using my address for business registration without asking, probably to look more legitimate to whatever marks he was currently scamming. That meant every piece of mail, every legal document, every trace of his shady business dealings was now tied to my property. And that was going to be useful. Saturday arrived. Perfect weather. I grilled kalbi and made banchan, set the table nice. My apartment looked clean, professional, successful. Everything they'd tried to take. The folders sat in my home office, waiting. The trap was set, and Cody was about to learn that the brother he'd dismissed his entire life was a lot smarter than he looked. They showed up at 6. Mom brought drinks. Dad immediately started eyeing the walls he'd measured 3 days ago. Cody walked in with this grin, already acting like he lived here, and behind him came Nicole. She caught my eye and gave the tiniest nod. She was in on it. "Oscar, man, this place looks great," Cody said, dropping onto my couch exactly like he had on camera. "You keeping it clean for once?" I smiled. "Special occasion." Mom headed straight to the kitchen. "You should really get better knives, sweetie. These are dull. I like them sharp enough to cut through nonsense, but thanks for the feedback." She blinked, not sure if I'd just insulted her. We ate dinner. Cody dominated the conversation like always, talking about his latest business opportunity, how he was about to blow up, how he had investors lining up. Dad nodded along like he was the next Elon Musk. Mom kept refilling his glass. Nicole stayed quiet. "So, brother," I said, setting down my chopsticks, "how's the apartment hunting going?" He exchanged looks with our parents. Dad jumped in smooth as ever. "Maybe you could help your brother out. You've got that extra bedroom collecting dust." "The office," Mom added. "You could work from the company office like everyone else." Cody needs a stable address for his business. Family helps family, Oscar. I took a slow sip. That's interesting, because I could have sworn I saw you all in here earlier this week, measuring my walls, planning where to put Cody's stuff, without asking me, without even telling me. The silence was beautiful. Cody's smirk faltered. Dad's jaw tightened. Mom opened her mouth. "I have security cameras," I continued. "Full coverage. Installed them after Mom borrowed Grandpa Kowalski's Rolex from my bedroom. Remember that, brother? The Rolex you told your friends you bought with your business earnings?" His face went red. "You said those were just for the front door?" I lied. "And I've got video of you 3 planning to move Cody in while I'm at a conference." "Dad, you want to hear your exact words?" I pulled out my phone and played the audio. Dad's voice filled my apartment, clear as day. "Oscar won't make a scene. He'll understand family comes first. We just need to do it while he's in San Francisco next month." Nicole shifted in her seat, and I saw the anger flash across her face. She'd been lied to about so many things, and now she was watching it all come together. Dad started to bluster. "Now, Oscar, you're taking this out of context." "Context? You broke into my freaking home to plan a hostile takeover. That's the context." "We're your family," Mom said, her voice rising. "How can you be so selfish? Your brother needs help right now. He's building something important." I laughed. "Important? Cody, what business are you in again?" "This week? Cryptocurrency education," he said defensively. "It's going to be huge." "It's a pyramid scheme," Nicole said quietly. All eyes turned to her. "He maxed out 3 of my credit cards. $40,000. For what? Bottle service? Club photos for Instagram? Your business opportunity doesn't exist." Cody's face went from red to pale. "Nicole, what the heck?" "Don't." Her voice was ice. "Oscar called me 2 months ago. We've been comparing notes. What the heck is going on? Dad asked, confused. Mom looked between them, confused. Oscar, what is she talking about? I'm talking about your son being a fraud. Nicole, you want to show them the credit card statements? She pulled out a folder. I'd taught her well. She spread the statements across my table. Charges at nightclubs, designer clothes, expensive dinners. Not a single legitimate business expense in the bunch. Cody told me he was investing our money, Nicole said. He told me we'd be millionaires by the end of the year. Instead, I'm $40,000 in debt and he's been living like a trust fund kid on my credit. That's not... I can explain, Cody stammered. Explain what? I cut him off. Explain how you've been using my apartment as your business address without asking? Yeah, I know about that too. You registered your LLC to my address without my consent. I pulled the public filings and contacted the businesses you were dealing with. Kowalski Capital Ventures LLC. That's your company, right? The one you're using to scam people into buying your crypto course? He stood up, knocking his chair back. You had no right to use my address. And you know what else I found in those public records? You're under FTC investigation for deceptive business practices. You're being sued by 3 different people for fraud. And you've been hiding all of this by using my address so Mom and Dad wouldn't find out. Dad's face was stone now. What the actual fug? Is this true, Cody? It's all garbage. Oscar's just jealous because what? I stood up. Because I actually built something real while you've been running scams? Because I worked my rear off while you coasted on Mom and Dad's money? Because I bought this place with money I earned and you thought you could just take it? Mom was crying now. Oscar, please. He's your brother. He made mistakes, but family forgives. Forgives? Right, wait a sec. I walked to my office and came back with more folders. Let me tell you what I'm forgiving. Cody has borrowed $73,000 from me over the past 6 years. Not $1 paid back. You two have borrowed another $45,000. Also not paid back. Meanwhile, Cody's living off Nicole's credit cards, using my address for his scam business. And you 3 were planning to illegally move him into my apartment. I dropped the folders on the table. This is everything. Every loan, every lie, every time you chose him over me. Every time you told me to be more understanding, while he took advantage of everyone around him. Cody was sweating now. You can't prove any of this means I can prove all of it. Bank transfers, text messages, emails, recorded conversations. And the best part? Nicole's lawyer is filing a civil suit against you for fraud. The FTC is investigating your deceptive business practices. And you've been using my address as your business registration without my consent. That's going to look real good when the feds start asking questions about mail fraud. Dad finally found his voice, but it was shaky. Oscar, son, I think you're overreacting. This is still family. No, I said. Family doesn't break into each other's homes. Family doesn't spend 3 decades teaching one kid he's worthless while the other kid can do no wrong. I walked to the door and opened it. Get out. All of you. Leave your key on the table. If you contact me again, if you come near this apartment, I'll file for restraining orders. And Cody? Nicole's lawyer is CCing me on everything. I'm going to watch you burn. Cody grabbed his jacket, his face twisted with rage. You're going to regret this. You think you're so dang smart with your job and your fancy apartment. You've always been a smug jerk, and now everyone's going to know it. Better a smug jerk than a fraud living off other people's credit cards. He stormed out, Nicole following behind him. But she paused at the door and looked back at me. Thank you, she mouthed. I nodded. She'd get her money back. I'd make sure of it. My parents left slower. Mom still crying. Dad wearing that mask of controlled anger I remembered from childhood. You're going to regret this, Dad said quietly. When you're alone and need family, we won't be there. Good, I said. I've been alone my whole life. I won't really bother. After they left, I locked the door, engaged the deadbolt, and walked to my window. The skyline stretched out in front of me, lights reflecting off Elliott Bay. My apartment, my sanctuary, still mine. Scott texted when I was locking up the office. How'd it go? Burned every bridge. Feels amazing. Drinks tomorrow? Absolutely. I just nuked my entire family in one dinner. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely free. Monday morning hit me with 17 texts from my mom, each one more desperate and guilt-trippy than the last. I blocked her number after reading the first one. Blocked Dad. Blocked Cody. The silence was peaceful. Nicole called that afternoon. Her lawyer had filed charges. Cody had been served and was blowing up her phone. I told her not to answer, that the documentation spoke for itself. She thanked me again for believing her, for helping her build the case. Most people wouldn't have had the guts to reach out to their scammer's family, but she'd been smart enough to know I might actually listen. The week that followed was chaos, but the good kind. Turned out Cody had been running his business out of 3 different addresses: mine, Nicole's, and some P.O. box in Tacoma. The FTC had been building a civil case for months based on deceptive trade practices. But once my documentation and Nicole's evidence landed, the DOJ opened a criminal investigation for wire fraud and mail fraud. Federal agents executed a search warrant at his apartment on Wednesday. The evidence they found: fake testimonials, stolen course materials, records of who he'd scammed, sealed it. Scott sent me the news article with the headline, "Local Man Charged with Wire Fraud and Crypto Education Scheme." Cody's mugshot looked exactly how you'd expect. Stunned, shocked that consequences existed. "Your brother?" Scott asked when I got to the office. "Not anymore." The best part was watching Cody's Instagram go from flexing lifestyle to complete radio silence. His followers started commenting, asking questions. Then someone linked the fraud charges. Then Nicole posted a statement about financial abuse. Then everything unraveled. Beautifully. Cody had been scamming people with a $2,000 cryptocurrency masterclass that was basically YouTube videos he'd stolen and repackaged. He had about 40 students who'd paid him, none of whom learned anything except how to lose money. They all started coming forward. The lawsuits piled up. My parents tried a different approach after that. They sent my uncle, Dad's brother, to talk to me. Uncle Henry was a good guy, never played favorites, always treated me square. We met for coffee on Friday. He told me straight up that Dad had asked him to intervene, but he'd told Dad he was an idiot. He'd watched them screw me over for years, had warned them they'd lose me. They hadn't listened. Cody had been a spoiled brat since birth, and everyone knew it except my parents. He pulled out his phone and told me Nicole had actually called him, asked if he'd be a witness in her case against Cody. He'd said yes without hesitation. That kid needed to learn consequences, and my parents needed to learn they couldn't enable their way out of this one. He slid a business card across the table, his lawyer's info, already briefed on my situation, ready to help with restraining orders or property protection if needed. I took the card and thanked him. "Don't thank me," he said. "Just don't let them weasel their way back into your life. You're better off without them." He was right. Cody's arraignment was the following Monday. Nicole went and sent me updates throughout. Cody showed up in a cheap suit with a bus bench lawyer, parents looking devastated in the gallery. The judge set bail at $50,000. Dad had to use the house as collateral. The whole time, Cody glared at Nicole like she'd orchestrated his downfall instead of just documenting it. Zero accountability. Exactly as expected. That evening, Scott and I grabbed drinks at a bar in Capitol Hill. He'd been my business partner for 4 years, knew all the family drama, never judged. He asked what was next for me now that my family was imploding, and Cody was facing federal charges. I told him the truth. Nothing changes. I just keep living my life. They were never really part of it anyway. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Oscar, it's your mother. I borrowed your father's phone. Please call me. Cody needs help. He could go to prison. You're his only family with the resources to hire a good lawyer. I'm begging you." I showed Scott the text. He asked what I was going to do. I deleted it and blocked the number. Nothing. He made his choices. 3 weeks later, Nicole's civil suit was settled. Cody had no money, but my parents did. They paid $40,000 to keep it from going to trial, probably hoping it would make the federal charges look better for sentencing. It didn't help. Nicole sent me a message saying she got the money and was paying off the cards. She mentioned Cody had tried to blame everything on me during depositions, said I'd set him up out of jealousy. Nobody believed him because I had evidence for everything. Meanwhile, my startup hit a major milestone. We closed a deal with a Fortune 500 company, which meant my equity was now worth serious money, like retire at 40 money. Scott and I celebrated by upgrading our office space and hiring 3 more developers. My life was objectively better without my family in it. 6 months passed. I built a life most people only dream about. The startup was thriving. My apartment remained mine. I'd started dating someone, Olivia, a product manager at Amazon who came from a healthy family and couldn't comprehend the dynamics I'd grown up with. She fit into my life easily, naturally, like relationships are supposed to work. Cody's trial date was set for November. The FTC had him dead to rights: wire fraud, deceptive business practices, identity theft. His bus bench lawyer was trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor wasn't interested. They wanted to make an example. I'd kept minimal tabs on my former family through Uncle Henry. Cody was living with my parents in their house, which they'd had to remortgage to pay for his legal fees and Nicole's settlement. Dad's business had taken a hit. Mom had to sell 2 of her rental properties. I felt nothing about their situation. They'd made their choices. Then came the email. Wednesday afternoon, between code reviews. Subject line, "We need to talk." No sender name. But I knew who it was. I opened it anyway. "Oscar, it's your father. I'm using a work email because you blocked our numbers. I know you don't want to hear from us, but I need you to understand what you've done to this family. Cody is facing prison time, 3 to 5 years. His lawyer says the only way to avoid it is to pay restitution to everyone he scammed, which comes to nearly $200,000. We don't have that kind of money anymore. We've had to mortgage our house, sell properties, drain our retirement. Your mother's health is suffering. People in our community won't talk to us anymore. Do you know how it feels to be treated like criminals because of your own son? I raised you better than this, Oscar. I taught you about standing by your family no matter what. Where did that kid go? Your brother made mistakes. Yes, but he's paid for them 100 times over. He's trying to turn his life around, trying to get legitimate work, but nobody will hire him with pending federal charges. He's alone, struggling, and all he gets is judgment. Your uncle says I should accept that you're lost to us, that you've changed, but I can't believe blah blah blah, because come on, I'm not reading the whole newspaper he sent. Anyways, he ended with, "Please call me. Let's fix this before it's too late." I read it twice and easily recognized the manipulation patterns. The old Oscar, the one who'd spent years trying to earn scraps of approval, would have felt crushing guilt. The current Oscar recognized it for exactly what it was. I forwarded it to Uncle Henry with one line. "They're still at it." He responded within minutes. "Don't engage. They're desperate. Your brother's probably going to prison, and they're looking for someone to blame." I didn't respond to my father's email. Responding would only confirm this method worked. The second email came a week later, this time from Cody directly. "Oscar, I know Dad wrote to you. I know you ignored him. Not surprised. Ignoring people who need you is kind of your specialty, right? You sit in your fancy apartment pretending you're better than everyone. Meanwhile, your family is falling apart. Do you know what my life is like now? I can't get a job. I can't leave the state. I'm stuck living with Mom and Dad like I'm 16 again. Everyone in the town knows my business because of you. Nicole got her money back. The FTC is happy. Everyone got what they wanted except me. And you? You have everything. Money, success, freedom, a girlfriend who probably doesn't know what kind of person you really are. You took the life I could have had. You sabotaged my business. You turned everyone against me. You cost me my relationship. And for what? Because you were jealous that Mom and Dad loved me more? I know you think you're so dang smart. Well, congratulations, brother. You won. But here's the thing. One day you're going to be in that apartment you guard like it's Fort Knox, and you're going to realize that all your success means nothing without family. You chose revenge over loyalty. You chose money over blood. I hope it was worth it. And by the way, I know your routines. I know everything about your perfect little life. Don't think you're untouchable just because you have money and cameras. Karma's a beach, big brother. I read the last paragraph twice. That was new. That was a threat. I forwarded both emails to the lawyer for review. He called me within the hour. The threat in the second email gives us what we need. Combined with their documented trespassing 6 months ago and this escalating pattern, we can file for a restraining order, but document everything going forward. Courts like patterns. How fast can we move? I'll file tomorrow. With the explicit threat and your documentation, we should get a temporary order within 72 hours, full hearing in 2 weeks. I started keeping a detailed log of everything. Every email, every blocked call, every social media interaction. Building an airtight case. The temporary restraining order came through 3 days later. Cody was ordered to stay at least 500 feet from my residence and workplace. Cease all contact, direct or indirect. The full hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out, but the temporary order was enforceable immediately. Violation meant arrest and criminal contempt charges. My mom tried one last email through her work account, claiming I was tearing the family apart over nothing. Henry's lawyer sent a response, making it clear any further contact would result in harassment charges and evidence presented at the restraining order hearing. The full restraining order hearing came 2 weeks later. Cody didn't show, probably on advice of his federal defense attorney. The judge made the order permanent based on the documented threats, the trespassing attempt, and the pattern of harassment. 500 feet. No contact, no exceptions. Violation meant immediate arrest. I updated building security with the court order and Cody's photo. Andrew, the head of security, flagged it in their system with instructions to call police immediately if he showed up. 3 weeks passed quietly after that. My mom sent one final email, this time through her work account. Oscar, you're making a terrible mistake. Getting a restraining order against your own brother? Over what? An email? You're tearing this family apart for no reason. We've lost everything. Your father might have to declare bankruptcy. And you're worried about an email? Cody is suffering enough. You've already ruined his life. Isn't that enough? I'm your mother. I gave birth to you. I raised you. Doesn't that mean anything? Uncle Henry's lawyer sent a response that made it clear any further contact would result in harassment charges. We never heard from them again through official channels. But my brother wasn't done. 3 weeks after the restraining order became permanent, I was working late at the office when Scott called me. Dude, you need to get home. Like right now. What's wrong? Cody's at your building. Security called me when they couldn't reach you. He's in the lobby demanding to see you. I'm on my way. I made it to my building in 15 minutes, speeding the whole way. When I pulled into the garage, I called building security. Mr. Kowalski, he's still here, said Andrew, the night security guard. He showed up about 40 minutes ago claiming there's a family emergency. We told him you're not here, and he's not on the approved list, but he won't leave. Says he'll wait all night if he has to. Call the police. He's not supposed to be within 500 feet of this building. Already done. They're on their way. I just wanted you to know before you came up. I'm in the garage. I'll wait here until he's gone. Through the phone, I could hear Cody's voice in the background. Come on, man. I just need 5 minutes with my brother. There's been an accident. This is an emergency. Andrew responded, calm and professional. Sir, I've confirmed with Mr. Kowalski directly. There's no emergency. You're violating a restraining order by being here. The police are on their way. This is bullshit. He's my brother. He can't just cut me off like this. Sir, you need to leave the premises immediately, or you'll be arrested. Let him arrest me then. At least I'll get to see his face when they drag me out. He thinks he's so dang untouchable up there in his tower. I stayed in my car listening. Part of me wanted to go up there, wanted to confront him. But I knew that's exactly what he wanted. A scene. The police arrived 8 minutes later. Through the phone, I heard them try to reason with him, and heard him shift tactics from aggression to playing the victim. He fed them a story about trying to fix his family, about me turning everyone against him, about just wanting to talk. The officers weren't buying it. They told him he was trespassing, that I'd confirmed no emergency, that he needed to leave or face arrest. His voice shifted again. Pure venom. Fine. Tell Oscar his little tech bro life isn't going to last forever. Tell him people who burn bridges usually end up alone. Tell him I'm not done. Footsteps. Voices. Then, Andrew came back on the line saying he was gone. Officers had escorted him to his car and watched him leave. They were filing an incident report. Andrew suggested I consider additional security measures. The guy seemed unstable. He was right. I sat in my car for another 20 minutes. Then I went upstairs, locked my door, and stood in my living room feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Fear. Not of Cody specifically, but of what he might do. He was desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. Olivia came over an hour later. I'd texted her what happened, and she drove straight from her place. You okay? She asked, wrapping her arms around me. Yeah, just ticked off. That's allowed. She pulled back to look at me. What are you going to do? Lawyer's filing a violation report. Cody might go to jail just for showing up here. Then he can't show up again? Exactly. She stayed over that night. We didn't talk much about it. But having someone there, someone who chose to be there without obligation or manipulation, reminded me why cutting off my family was the right choice. The violation report was filed the next morning. Cody's bail was revoked. He was taken into custody pending his fraud trial. Uncle Henry called me that afternoon with an update. My mom had called him crying, asking if he could talk to me about helping with Cody's legal situation now that he was in custody. He'd told her Cody violated a court order, that he'd been warned repeatedly. She hadn't taken it well. He also mentioned Cody's defense attorney was scrambling for a plea deal. The restraining order violation on top of the federal charges killed any sympathy angle they might have had. Cody's federal case moved fast after that. His attorney negotiated a plea, guilty to wire fraud and mail fraud in exchange for 18 months federal prison and 5 years supervised release with full restitution to victims. The prosecutor accepted. My parents would spend years paying off his debts while he did his time, and I would spend that time living my life completely free of them. 15 months later, Cody got out. Federal inmates typically serve about 85% of their sentence with good behavior, so the timeline tracked. Uncle Henry gave me the heads up a week before his release date. He's been asking about you. Apparently went to some kind of rehabilitation program in prison. Says he wants to make amends. Amends? I laughed. That's rich. I'm just telling you what I heard. Do with it what you want. I did nothing with it. Ignored it completely. My life had become exactly what I wanted. The startup was profitable. Olivia and I had moved in together, and I'd completely rebuilt my social circle with the right people. Then Cody showed up at my office. Scott came into my workspace, looking uncomfortable. Your brother's in the lobby. Security stopped him, but he's asking to talk to you. I looked at the clock. 2:40 p.m. Tell security I'll come down. But I'm not letting him up here. Let's get this over with. I took the elevator down to the lobby. He was standing by the windows, looking like prison had hollowed him out. Oscar, he said when he saw me. Thanks for coming down. You've got 5 minutes. He looked around the lobby. Nice place. Scott said you guys are doing well. 4 minutes. He took a breath and launched into his apology. Said he knew he'd messed up everything. Wanted to say he was sorry. It lasted maybe 90 seconds before I cut him off. Nah, I said. You're sorry you got caught. Not for what you did. His face tightened. But prison had changed me. I'd learned and grown. I told him prison didn't change him. It just removed his access to victims. He pushed back. You're being unfair. I'm trying to make amends here. Don't, I said, stepping closer. You're trying to use me. Again. I can't be fooled anymore, brother. His mask almost slipped. Just for a second. That familiar anger flashed across his face before he caught himself. I should have known you'd be like this, he said. Henry warned me. Said you'd never forgive me. He's a smart man, I said. That's when the real Cody came out. The same rant started. How I thought I was better than everyone. How mom and dad were broke. How he couldn't get a job. How Nicole took everything. And how I was looking down on all of them like trash. You know the difference between me and you, brother? I said when he finally ran out of steam. When I failed, I learned. When you fail, you blame everyone else. He tried the family obligation angle. Asked if I was going to hate him forever, never give him another chance. I'm not going to think about you at all, I said. That's the point you keep missing. You're just some guy I used to know who kept making terrible choices. You can't say that. I'm your brother. No, you're someone who shares my DNA. And here's what's going to happen now. You're going to leave, never contact me again, never show up at my office or apartment, and never reach out through anyone else. You got out of prison? Good for you. Now go rebuild your life somewhere far away from mine. I mean, if I don't, then you keep making the same mistakes. But you stay away from me while you do it, because I'll make sure you'll always face consequences. He tried to call my bluff. I mentioned his probation officer might be very interested in hearing about him harassing the brother he was ordered to stay away from. That changed his face real quick. He grabbed his jacket, his face twisted with rage. You're a cold jerk, you know that? Yes, I know that. We're not done, Oscar. One day you're going to need us, and we won't be there. Promise? He stared at me for a long moment. Screw you, he finally said. Right back at you, little brother. He turned and walked out. I watched him cross the street, get into a beat-up car, and drive away. I went back upstairs. Scott was waiting at my desk. Think he'll try again? Nope. He knows I'll have him arrested. He's not stupid enough to go back to prison. Scott nodded. Good, because we have that investor meeting in an hour, and I need you focused. I will be. I hung up and looked around. This was my life now. Built from scratch. Earned through years of work. Protected by boundaries I'd learned to enforce. My brother would probably try again eventually. Maybe through my parents. Maybe through some mutual acquaintance. Maybe through a desperate email or phone call years from now when he hit rock bottom again. And I'd ignore it. Block it. Delete it. Because I'd learned the most important lesson. Some people will take everything you have and still believe they deserve more. The only way to protect yourself is to cut them off completely. Build a life they can't access. And thrive in spaces they can't invade. That was the only revenge that mattered. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Story 2. This story is titled, Sister-in-Law Called the Cops on Me. So I refused to babysit her kids, and now her life is falling apart. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. For years, my sister-in-law Sarah and I had a babysitting arrangement that worked perfectly. We started it back in March 2020 when the pandemic screwed everyone's lives over. She'd watch my kids 3 days a week, and I'd watch hers 3 days. No money exchanged hands, no drama, no bullshit. It was a win-win. And for 3 solid years, we kept it running smoothly. If something came up, we'd give each other plenty of notice, like mature adults. Then Sarah decided to throw all that out the fucking window over one stupid argument. A couple of weeks ago, we had this petty disagreement. I can't even remember what it was about. It was that insignificant. But apparently, Sarah took it personally. I figured she'd cool off after a day, so I didn't dwell on it. The next morning, I dropped my kids off at her place like I'd done 100 times before. I didn't even go inside. That wasn't unusual for us. If one of us was in a rush or just not feeling social, we'd stay in the car, let the kids go inside, and drive off once the door opened. I didn't think twice about it. I waved at her door when I saw it open, and then I headed to work. My commute is about 40 minutes, so I just zoned out to music, totally unaware that shit was about to hit the fan. When I finally got to work and checked my phone, my stomach dropped. I had 20 missed calls and a ton of texts, all from Sarah. The text started off with her saying she wasn't watching my kids that day because of our argument. Then the tone shifted to her bitching about me ignoring her. The last few messages were her threatening to call the police if I didn't pick up my kids within 45 minutes. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I called her immediately, apologizing for not seeing her messages sooner. I explained that my phone was on silent while I drove. You know, because I'm not a moron who texts and drives. I told her I'd leave work early and come get the kids, but she cut me off. "You've got 45 minutes, or I'm calling the cops," she said, all smug like she thought she was doing me a favor. I was speechless. Who the hell calls the cops on their own family? I work with kids for a living. If anything about child abandonment ended up on my record, my career would be over. Sarah knew this, and she still pulled this shit, still. I told her I'd leave as soon as I could, but I had to wrap up a few things at work first. My boss was understanding, but even with her support, I couldn't just drop everything immediately. By the time I got back to Sarah's place, it was just over an hour later. 2 squad cars were parked in front of Sarah's place, lights flashing, and my kids were standing on the porch looking scared out of their minds. I wanted to throw up. Sarah was standing there talking to the officers like she was the damn victim in all this, acting all righteous and smug. I got out of my car, took a deep breath, and approached them. My first thought was to yell at Sarah right there in front of everyone, but I knew I couldn't. So I turned to the cops and tried to explain what had happened. "There's been a misunderstanding," I told them. "I didn't abandon my kids. I dropped them off here this morning like I've done 100 times before, but I didn't see her message saying she couldn't watch them until I was already at work." One of the officers looked at me like he'd heard this story a million times before. "You didn't see her messages?" he asked, skeptical. "No," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I was driving, and my phone was on silent. I called her back as soon as I saw the messages and told her I was on my way. I got here as fast as I could." Sarah, of course, had to chime in. "I told you I couldn't watch them today," she snapped. "You should have checked your phone before leaving them here. This is on you." I could feel my blood boiling, but I kept it together. "I didn't see the texts, Sarah. That's not an excuse to call the cops on me. You know I work with kids. Do you have any idea what this could have done to me?" She just shrugged, like it was no big deal. The cops looked between us like they didn't want to be involved in our family drama. One of them finally said, "All right, this sounds like a communication issue. There's no crime here, so we're not filing any reports. Just make sure this doesn't happen again." They left, and I grabbed my kids and put them in the car. I didn't even look at Sarah as I walked back to my car, but she just had to get the last word in. "Maybe next time you'll check your phone," she yelled after me. "This was your fault, not mine." I didn't respond. I couldn't. If I'd said anything, it would have been a string of words that would have probably made me look like the crazy one. Instead, I slammed the car door, drove home, and spent the rest of the day trying to calm the fuck down. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head. The cops. The smug look on Sarah's face. My kids looking terrified on that porch. The fact that I even had to explain myself to the police. It made my blood boil all over again. She knew what she was doing. She knew exactly how much was at stake for me. And she did it anyway. A few days later, Sarah had the audacity to text me. She said, and I quote, "I think I might have overreacted. Can we go back to the old babysitting schedule?" I stared at the message for a good 5 minutes, trying to decide if I was going to respond or just block her outright. In the end, I decided she needed to hear exactly what I thought. "No, Sarah," I replied. "We're not going back to anything. You called the cops on me, on your own family. You knew what that could have done to me, and you didn't give a fuck. So no, I'm not babysitting your kids ever again. Figure it out, she replied almost immediately, trying to twist it back on me. If you'd checked your phone or spoken to me when you dropped them off, none of this would have happened, she wrote. I warned you. I would have handled it differently if I were in your position. I couldn't believe the nerve of this woman. You're out of your fucking mind if you think this is my fault, I shot back. You crossed a line and I'm done with you. She kept texting, trying to guilt me into forgiving her, but I didn't reply. I blocked her number and figured that'd be the end of it. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. A few days later, my brother Mike called me. Now Mike's usually a chill guy, but when it comes to Sarah, he's whipped as hell. He started off by saying he just wanted to talk, but it quickly turned into him yelling at me. Why can't you just let this go? He said. Sarah apologized. She knows she went too far. We're family. You're really going to let one mistake ruin everything? One mistake? I snapped. Mike, she called the fucking cops on me. Do you understand what could have happened if the cops hadn't believed me? My career would have been over. She knew that and didn't give a shit. She was pissed, he said. Like that made it okay. You're really going to hold a grudge over this? You're screwing us over, man. Sarah had to quit her job because we can't afford childcare now. Do you even care what this is doing to us? Not my problem, I told him. You guys made your bed. Now lie in it. Mike went off, calling me selfish, saying I was tearing the family apart. I told him to fuck off and hung up on him. Then my mom called, and I knew I was in for another round of guilt tripping. Sure enough, she started with, "You're being unreasonable." Sarah apologized. Why can't you just forgive her? Because this isn't about an apology, Mom, I said. She didn't just screw me over. She put my entire career at risk. And now you're trying to make me feel bad because she's dealing with the consequences of her actions? Number, I'm done. Of course she didn't get it. She said I was being childish and needed to think about how this was affecting the family. I told her I was thinking about the family. My own family. My kids. Myself. Not Sarah and Mike. And with that, I ended the call. Sarah calling the cops on me was bad enough, but the fallout from that decision was about to ripple through the entire family in ways none of us saw coming. I thought things couldn't get any worse after Sarah called the cops on me, and Mike blew up my phone with his guilt-tripping bullshit, but apparently, I underestimated just how selfish and entitled these two could be. The real kicker came when my mom started paying the price, literally and figuratively, for their irresponsibility. After Sarah quit her job, she dumped her kids on my mom, who apparently decided it was her job to fix the mess. At first, I didn't care. My mom had been defending Sarah, saying I was overreacting, so I figured she'd learn her lesson once Sarah pulled her usual crap on her. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. My mom started looking more and more exhausted every time I saw her. She complained about being tired but wouldn't directly say she was overwhelmed. I knew she was trying to hold it together, but it was obvious that babysitting Sarah's kids 3 days a week was draining her. Then one day, I got a call at work. It was my mom, and she sounded like shit. She was out of breath, saying she didn't feel well. My stomach sank immediately. I told her to stay put and rushed over to her place. When I got there, she looked pale and weak, sitting on the couch like she could barely hold herself up. I asked her what was wrong, and she said her chest felt tight and she had a headache that wouldn't go away. I wasn't about to take any chances, so I took her to the doctor. Turns out her blood pressure was sky high, dangerously high. The doctor said she needed to rest and avoid stress. Of course, I knew exactly what was causing her stress. Sarah and her kids. But even after hearing this, my mom refused to blame Sarah outright. They're my grandkids, she said when I brought it up. I can't just stop helping. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Helping is one thing. Letting them walk all over you is another. You're not responsible for their kids. That's Sarah and Mike's job. She sighed but didn't say anything. I could tell she wasn't ready to stand up to them yet, but I sure as hell was. The next time Sarah came by to drop off her kids, I happened to be at my mom's place. I wasn't planning on being there, but I'd swung by to check on her, and Sarah showed up, all smiles, acting like she wasn't dumping her problems on a sick woman. Hi, Mom, she chirped, ushering her kids inside. I'll be back around 6. I stepped in before my mom could say anything. Actually, no, you won't, I said, crossing my arms. Sarah froze and looked at me like I'd just slapped her. What do you mean? She asked, her tone immediately defensive. I mean, you're not leaving your kids here anymore, I said. Mom just got out of the fucking doctor's office because of her blood pressure, and the last thing she needs is to babysit your kids while you sit on your ass all day. Sarah's face turned red. I'm not sitting on my ass, she snapped. I'm handling things at home while Mike works. Do you know how hard it is to manage everything? Yeah, I do, I shot back. And guess what? It's your responsibility, not Mom's. Not mine. Yours. Figure it the fuck out. My mom tried to intervene, of course. Ashley, that's enough. We can talk about this later. No, Mom, we can't, I said, turning to her. You've been bending over backward for them. And look where it's gotten you. At the doctor's office. It's time to stop. Sarah, meanwhile, was fuming. You don't get to decide that, she hissed. This is between me and Mom. Like hell it is, I said. You're putting her health at risk because you and Mike can't get your shit together. I'm not letting this continue. She stormed out with her kids, muttering under her breath about how I was ruining everything. I didn't care. If she thought she could guilt me into backing down, she was dead wrong. For a while, I thought maybe that confrontation would be the wake-up call Sarah needed. But nope. The very next week, she dropped her kids off at my mom's house again, as if nothing had happened. My mom called me later that day, apologizing for not standing up to Sarah. I just don't know how to say no to her, she admitted. She always makes me feel guilty. Mom, I said, trying not to lose my temper. You have to stop letting her manipulate you. She's not going to stop until you put your foot down. I know, she said quietly. But what about the kids? They didn't ask for any of this. And they're not your responsibility, I reminded her. You can love them without letting their mom walk all over you. The breaking point came a week later when my mom ended up back in the hospital. Her blood pressure had spiked again, and this time, the doctor warned her that she needed to make serious changes or risk a stroke. Seeing her like that, hooked up to monitors, looking so fragile, broke something in me. When Mike showed up to pick up Sarah's kids, I couldn't hold back anymore. I confronted him right there in the hospital. You and Sarah are killing Mom, I told him bluntly. If you leave your kids with her again, I swear to God, I'll call the cops myself. Don't be ridiculous, he said, rolling his eyes. She loves watching them. She wants to help. Bullshit, I snapped. She's too nice to say no, and you're taking advantage of that. You're putting her health at risk because you and Sarah can't figure out how to parent your own damn kids. Mike didn't like that one bit. He started yelling about how I was being dramatic and making things harder for everyone. I told him I didn't give a fuck. If they couldn't handle their shit, that was on them. Not me, and definitely not my mom. Later that night, I sat down with my mom and told her she had to stop babysitting. I love you, Mom, but this has to end, I said. You've done more than enough. It's time to put yourself first. She cried. Of course. She hated feeling like she was letting anyone down, even people who didn't deserve her kindness. But I think the second hospital visit finally drove the point home. She agreed to tell Sarah and Mike that she couldn't babysit anymore, even though I knew it was going to be a battle. Sarah and Mike weren't going to like it, but I didn't care. They needed to start taking responsibility for their own damn lives, whether they liked it or not. You'd think Sarah and Mike would get the hint after my mom's trip to the hospital, but nope. These two just kept doubling down on their entitlement. When my mom finally told them she couldn't babysit anymore, they acted like she'd just betrayed them. Sarah had a meltdown, crying about how hard it was for her to manage everything and saying my mom promised to help. Mike, as usual, took the passive-aggressive route. He called me up, furious, trying to pin the whole thing on me like it was my fault for turning Mom against them. You happy now? He snarled. Mom won't help anymore because you had to get involved. Yeah, I am happy, I snapped back. Because now she won't end up in the hospital again thanks to you and your wife's bullshit. She wants to help, he shouted. You're making it harder for everyone. No, Mike, you're making it harder for everyone, I said. You and Sarah are lazy as hell and think everyone else should pick up the slack. Mom almost had a fucking stroke because of you two, and you're still acting like the victims. Grow up. He hung up on me after that, but I didn't care. I was done trying to reason with him. If he and Sarah wanted to keep digging their own graves, that was their problem. I wasn't going to lose sleep over it. A few days later, I got a call from my mom. She sounded nervous, which immediately put me on edge. Ashley, Sarah dropped the kids off again, she said, her voice shaking. I saw red. What the fuck? Mom, you told her you couldn't do it anymore. I did, she said quietly, but she just left them here and said she'd be back later. That was it. I'd had enough. I called Sarah, and when she didn't pick up, typical, I left her a voicemail. You've got 45 minutes to pick up your kids, or I'm calling the fucking cops. And unlike you, I'm not bluffing. Get your shit together. I was shaking with rage when I hung up, but honestly, it felt good to give her a taste of her own medicine. Sarah showed up about 30 minutes later, just like I knew she would. She came storming into my mom's house, yelling about how unreasonable I was being. You're taking this way too far, she screamed. You wouldn't actually call the cops on me. Try me, I said, leaning against the counter with my arms crossed. You were more than happy to do it to me, so why the fuck shouldn't I? She kept ranting about how I was blowing things out of proportion, but I didn't engage. I just stared at her until she grabbed her kids and left. My mom looked horrified, but I didn't feel the slightest bit guilty. Someone had to stand up to Sarah, and if my mom couldn't do it, I would. Of course, Mike called me later that night to chew me out. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" he yelled. "You're really threatening to call the cops on us now? You're taking this way too far." "Oh, so now it's a problem when someone threatens to call the cops?" I shot back. "Maybe you should have thought about that when Sarah pulled the same shit on me." "She was upset," Mike protested. "She didn't mean it like that." "Well, now I'm upset. And I do mean it," I said. "You two are a fucking train wreck, and I'm not going to let you drag Mom or me down with you. Figure your shit out." "You're tearing this family apart," he shouted. "No, Mike, you and Sarah are doing that all on your own," I said, and hung up before he could respond. The next week, Sarah tried her usual routine, dropping the kids off at my mom's house without asking. But this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. I'd already warned her, so I didn't bother calling. I went straight to the police non-emergency line and reported an abandonment issue. I told them there were 2 kids left with a sick elderly woman who couldn't care for them. When the officers showed up, Sarah was absolutely livid. She stormed into my mom's house while they were still there, screaming about how I was ruining her life. "This is your fault," she yelled at me. "You're destroying my family." "No, Sarah, you're destroying your own family," I said calmly. "You've been dumping your responsibilities on everyone else, and now it's catching up to you." The officers made her take her kids and warned her not to leave them with someone who couldn't care for them. The look on her face was priceless. She wanted to argue, but even she wasn't stupid enough to push it further. After that, Sarah and Mike stopped trying to involve my mom, but the fallout from their mess was just beginning. Sarah was struggling to handle the kids on her own, and Mike was working overtime to make up for her lost income. Their marriage was clearly strained. Mike even started crashing at my mom's house a few nights a week, which only made things more awkward for everyone. My mom was upset, of course. She hated seeing the family fall apart, but I reminded her that this was all Sarah and Mike's doing. "They're reaping what they sowed," I told her. "This isn't your fault, and it's not your job to fix it." She nodded, but I could tell she still felt torn. That's the thing about my mom. She's too kind for her own good. But even she was starting to see that Sarah and Mike were beyond help. After the police visit, Sarah and Mike finally seemed to get the message. They stopped dumping their kids at my mom's house, but the fallout was already in full swing. Sarah was stuck at home, trying to manage her kids 24/7, and let's just say she wasn't handling it well. Mike was working nonstop to cover their bills, and the cracks in their marriage were getting bigger by the day. I wasn't surprised when my mom told me Mike had started crashing at her place some nights. Apparently, he needed space from Sarah because the constant fighting was driving him nuts. My mom tried to play it off like it wasn't a big deal, but I could tell she was worried. She kept saying things like, "I just want everyone to get along," and "Family shouldn't be this way." I love my mom, but I couldn't help rolling my eyes. "Mom, this isn't about getting along. Sarah and Mike made their bed, and now they're lying in it. This is on them, not us." "But Ashley," she said, her voice cracking, "what if they can't make it work? What if this breaks their family?" I sighed. If their family is falling apart, that's because they refuse to take responsibility for their own lives. You can't keep fixing everything for them. Meanwhile, Sarah started spreading her version of the story to anyone who would listen. According to her, I was the villain who refused to help my own family in their time of need. She left out the part where she called the cops on me, of course. Instead, she painted herself as a struggling mom, just trying to do her best while I selfishly turned my back on them. I started getting calls from extended family members, all parroting Sarah's bullshit. "Why can't you just help them out?" one aunt asked. "It's not like you're doing anything wrong, but you're making their lives so much harder." "Oh, I'm making their lives harder," I snapped. "Did Sarah tell you she called the fucking cops on me? Because that's why we're here." The silence on the other end of the line was always golden. I wasn't about to let her rewrite the narrative and make me out to be the bad guy. The drama hit its peak about a month later when Mike showed up at my mom's house in the middle of the night. He was drunk off his ass and rambling about how he couldn't take it anymore. And yes, before you ask, I'd warned my mom not to let him stay there, but she's too soft-hearted to turn him away. When I found out the next morning, I called him, ready to let him have it. "What the fuck is wrong with you, Mike? Showing up at mom's house like that? She doesn't need this shit." "You don't understand," he slurred, clearly still hungover. "Sarah's driving me crazy. She's always bitching about how hard things are, and I'm the one working my ass off to keep us afloat." "Well, Maybe if you two had your shit together, you wouldn't be in this mess, I snapped. But hey, keep blaming everyone else. That's been working great for you so far. He started yelling, but I hung up before he could finish. I wasn't wasting any more energy on him. The final nail in the coffin came a few weeks later when Sarah officially quit her job for good. She'd been trying to hold on to a part-time gig, but between the cost of childcare and her inability to manage her kids without help, she gave up. Mike, meanwhile, picked up even more hours at work, but it still wasn't enough. Their bills were piling up, and their savings, if they even had any, were gone. I found out from my mom that they were considering moving back in with Sarah's parents several hours away. They don't have many options left, she said, sounding genuinely sad. Good, I said bluntly. Maybe they'll figure out how to handle their shit without dragging everyone else down with them. She didn't respond, but I could tell she was still holding on to some hope that things would turn around. I didn't share her optimism. People like Sarah and Mike don't change unless they're forced to, and even then, it's a long shot. A few weeks after that, I got a call from Mike. It was short and to the point. We're moving, he said. Thanks for nothing, asshole. I couldn't help but laugh. You're welcome, I said, and hung up. As of now, Sarah and Mike are out of the picture. They moved back in with Sarah's parents, and from what I've heard, their relationship is hanging by a thread. I'd be lying if I said I felt bad for them. They brought this on themselves, and I'm not about to lose sleep over it. My mom is doing better now that she's not babysitting or dealing with their drama. She still talks about how sad it is that the family fell apart, but I remind her that it's not our job to fix people who don't want to be fixed. As for me, I've made my peace with the situation. I don't think my relationship with Mike and Sarah will ever recover, but honestly, I'm okay with that. Some people need to hit rock bottom before they learn anything, and even then they might not change. At the end of the day, I have my own family to take care of, and that's where my focus is. If Sarah and Mike want to keep playing the victim, they can do it without me. I'm done. Story 3. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I've been in a relationship with my 24-year-old girlfriend for 8 months now. She has a close group of friends from high school and always checks in with them before making decisions. We first met at a work-related event a year ago, hit it off, and after asking her out a few times, she agreed to go out with me. I later discovered the reason she took a while to say yes was that she was waiting for her friend's approval of me. At first, I found it odd that she needed her friend's permission just to go on a date. However, she explained that this was the norm within her group of friends, so I didn't push the subject further. I've since met her friends, and they all seem like good people, so I don't have any concerns. It seems they're just looking out for their friend, which I understand. It appears to work well for my girlfriend. A few weeks back, she mentioned that she had always dreamt of going on a beach trip with her partner, but for various reasons, it never happened. With her birthday approaching, I saw the perfect opportunity to surprise her by planning the beach trip she's always wanted. I had everything arranged, including a relaxing spa session to make the trip extra special. I'm not great at keeping secrets, but I managed to keep this one, eagerly anticipating our trip. This was going to be a significant gesture on my part, aiming to create a memorable experience for us both. However, just days before her birthday, she explained that she preferred to celebrate by partying with her friends, who had been planning this for weeks. She assured me we could celebrate together later. I suggested maybe her friends could reschedule, but she was firm about wanting to spend her birthday with them. She hoped I wouldn't be too upset by this. Despite her reassurance, I couldn't hide my disappointment. I tried to persuade her, but it only led to frustration on her part, insisting on her plans and expecting me to just accept it. Her response left me deeply hurt, leading me to cancel the beach trip altogether. Losing some money on the cancellation was disappointing, but my bigger concern was feeling sidelined in favor of her friends. I get that she has a long history with them, but as her boyfriend, I was really looking forward to celebrating together, especially since she usually spends weekends with her friends anyway. I've always respected the importance of her friendships, never begrudging their time together. All I wanted was for her to prioritize our time together just this once. I realize it might sound selfish, but it's disheartening to feel like a second choice. I decided to cancel the trip without telling her about my plans, as the surprise was already spoiled by her preference to be with her friends over me. Her birthday was yesterday, and she celebrated by partying with her friends, which they all seemed to enjoy. My friends thought the situation was odd, but that didn't matter much to me. I was too upset, trying my best to distract myself from thinking about it. Today she came over, and I tried to act as though nothing had happened. She seemed to be quite happy as well, and was telling me all about how her friends had gotten her drunk and how much fun they'd had without even noticing how hurt I looked. After a while, I felt like I was going to cry, and I didn't want to seem like a baby in front of her, so I excused myself to go to the loo. I was extremely upset about everything that had happened in the past few days and didn't know how to tell her that I was feeling neglected without seeming like I was insecure. Anyway, I washed my face and went back out so that I could try to talk to her about how she was making me feel. But when I came back out, I noticed that my girlfriend looked serious and saw that my phone was clutched in her hand. As soon as she saw me, she approached me and showed me my phone screen, demanding an explanation as to why I canceled her birthday trip to the resort that I had booked. Had sent a text about how they regretted that I had canceled my stay and informed me that my refund was complete. Given the whole situation, it seemed my girlfriend eventually realized something was off. However, rather than showing any remorse, she appeared angry, which baffled me. Keeping my cool, I explained that I had canceled the beach trip right after she expressed her preference to celebrate her birthday with her friends instead of me. Her reaction was explosive. She accused me of ruining her birthday, labeling my actions as immature and criticizing me for not sharing my plans to persuade her to join me. I was perplexed, feeling unjustly blamed since I had intended the trip as a special surprise for her. It was she who had decided against spending her birthday together, opting for her friend's company, and even arguing with me when I sought to discuss it. Her frustration only escalated during our exchange, calling me immature and selfish for wanting to spend her birthday together. This left me in a difficult position, trying to understand how wanting to celebrate her day in a special way had turned into such a contentious issue. And then she accused me of ruining her special day on purpose once again. So I shot right back, saying that had she at least given me a chance to take her out, then she would have known what I had in store for her. So she only has herself to blame in this situation. And calling me immature wasn't going to change what had already happened. I told her that she needed to reevaluate her priorities and stop acting like she and her friends were still in high school. She was already pretty upset, and when I said that, she called me a jerk and left my house in tears. It's been 2 hours since she left, and while initially I had felt better after fighting with her and getting it all off my chest, I actually do feel like a total jerk right now. I can't get the image of her crying out of my head and feel like I did ruin her birthday. Somehow, even though the logical part of my brain says that I'm not responsible for this, it's just that I really, really like this woman. And apart from her sort of juvenile behavior when it comes to her friends, she's pretty much perfect. Let me be clear, I really admire how dedicated she is to her friends. It speaks volumes about her loyalty and trustworthiness. Yet there are times when it feels like she prefers their company over mine, which is quite painful. I believe anyone in my position would feel similarly hurt. In this particular instance, I might have reacted impulsively, possibly causing her distress. I regret my actions and words deeply. Contrary to what I hoped, expressing my frustrations didn't bring me any relief. Now I'm stuck in a whirlwind of confusion. On one hand, I'm inclined to apologize and put this disagreement behind us. However, on the flip side, I can't shake off the feeling that I'm not the one at fault here. She consistently prioritizes her friends over me. Understanding that she has a longer history with them doesn't make the situation any less painful for me. I'm at a crossroads, unsure of how to proceed. The urgency is mounting. I'm worried that if I don't act quickly, I might lose her for good. I don't want to risk that. But I don't want to apologize either, to be honest. Which is why I'm here to ask if Ada for canceling the beach trip I planned for my girlfriend's birthday after she told me that she wanted to spend the day with her friends instead. Update 1. One day has passed since our fight, and this is probably the longest that we've gone without speaking to each other. It feels weird as hell, but I'm not going to apologize to her first if that's what she's expecting. I thought about this situation real hard, and I just cannot understand how exactly I am in the wrong here. I don't think I am, so I'm not going to apologize either. And I'm guessing my girlfriend has already told her friends about this incident because a few minutes ago I checked my social media and realized that some of them had blocked me. So get this. While some of her friends kept quiet, others went full-on drama mode, spamming cryptic quotes and snaps with my girl, painting her as some kind of tragic hero who deserved way better. Seriously? They were hyping her up, acting like she was caught in some epic tragedy, not just facing the fallout of her own choices. And the kicker? These same friends, who were all smiles and sweetness to my face, flipped the script and are now on a mission to paint me as the villain. Like, come on, they know the real story. If they were truly her ride or dies, they'd set her straight instead of fanning the flames. It's just low, really. And you know what? I'm starting to think they're just salty about her being in a stable relationship. Let's do some math. She's got 7 friends, and none of them have managed to keep a guy around for more than a hot minute. Not throwing shade, but it did make me wonder why they're all serial short-termers. Me? I'm not one to bail at the first sign of trouble. I'm all in when it comes to relationships, giving it everything I've got before even thinking about calling it quits. So to me, things like these are really strange and don't really make sense to me. My girlfriend and I have had small fights and disagreements before, but we've always managed to fix it within a few hours, and I don't think she's ever complained to her friends about it. I'm guessing it's because her friends with only advised her to break up at the slightest inconvenience. I don't want to break up with my girlfriend and do want to talk things out with her. But if she decides to take her friend's advice and break up with me, then well, that's her loss. I'll be very hurt, but at least I'll know that I did the right thing and stay true to myself. Update. 3 days ago, I posted the last update when I realized that some of her friends had blocked me and were egging her on to break up with me, in all probability. And today I got to know that I've definitely been right about my suspicions. My girlfriend and I hadn't spoken for 3 days after our fight, and by today, I'd given up hope of getting back with her and was almost sure that we were over. I was really upset and decided to take a day off from work so that I could spend it at home, moping and watching something fun to feel better. But then, a few hours ago, my doorbell rang, and I was a little surprised as I wasn't expecting anyone. But when I opened the door, I found my girlfriend standing out there with a bouquet in a box of my favorite chocolates. I was stunned for a second since I absolutely had no clue how to react to this. As a guy, I've literally never been spoiled in a relationship, and an apology like this seemed huge. I opened the door without a word, lost for what to say. Then, cutting through the silence like a siren, she blurted out an apology for the whole mess and floated the idea of us getting back together. I barely had a moment to process before she launched into her story. After our argument, she'd bolted to a friend's place, where they were supposed to meet for brunch. She arrived with our drama fresh on her heels. Spilling the beans to her brunch crew, she set the scene of our fallout, and predictably, they rallied to her defense like an army, insisting she dump me on the spot. They even threw in that they'd never been fans of mine, tossing jabs about my height and looks into the mix. And then, as if straight out of a playbook for stirring drama, one of them pitched the idea of her going on a date with another guy just to twist the knife in further. And that's when the warning bells started going off in her head because she knew that what her friend was suggesting was literally the definition of cheating and emotional manipulation. To her surprise, her other friends agreed with this tactic as well, and even told her that they tried this in the past and it always worked when it came to making the guy apologize. This was the first time that she told her friends about a serious relationship problem, and she was shocked that whatever her friends were suggesting. She told them that she didn't want to do that, but that just made her friends mock her for being too pansy and simple-minded, and even said that her submissive behavior was the reason her boyfriend, felt comfortable doing such mean things to her. I am my girlfriend's first serious adult relationship since the first relationship she had was in high school, which lasted for a year. But they broke up when they went to college and he ended up cheating on her. She didn't date anyone after that because of her trust issues and stuff, and of course, her friends never deemed anyone worthy of dating anyway. So while she did go on a couple of dates and had some flings for fun, it was never really meaningful. She told me that she knew that she wanted to make things work with me. And even though we'd been together for less than a year, she already felt attached to me, and that couldn't be changed. So listening to her friends' advice and watching them post stuff just to piss me off and even laugh about it like it was all some hilarious joke made her realize that they didn't actually have any good relationship advice for her and were actually probably toxic in their own respective relationships as well. She thought along the same lines that I did about how they could never stick it out with the same guy for more than a few months, and came to the conclusion that they were probably not the right people to take relationship advice from. She'd realized her mistake that day itself, and even told her friends towards the end of the day about how she wanted to apologize to me and fix things. But that's when they started telling her that she should just listen to them instead, and said that apologizing would set a bad precedent and would make her appear weak. She tried to argue that she really was in the wrong here and that apologizing for their own mistakes isn't something white people do. But her friends got pissed off when she tried to disagree with them, and after arguing with her for a few minutes, they gave her an ultimatum and said that she could either stay friends with them or go crawling back to me. My girlfriend mentioned that this was the exact phrase that they used, and I was kind of shocked that they'd say something like that since it's kind of harsh. And while my girlfriend was desperate to apologize to me and fix our relationship, she was also extremely afraid of losing her friends. She doesn't really have anyone outside of this circle and would end up completely friendless if she chose me, which is why she took 2 days to come around, as she spent these days doing nothing but sobbing in her room and binge eating ice cream out of sheer frustration. But today, she'd woken up with a clear mind and knew that she'd rather be with me than with her friends. Since these 2 days had made her realize just how toxic and controlling her friends were. They hadn't even bothered to check up on her after they'd met and were only concerned about some irrelevant gossip. They'd heard about some girl from their high school. This made her realize that while she was ready to move on and act like an adult, her friends were still acting like the mean girl clique they'd formed in high school, which was just not okay anymore. I guess I've been right about her friends after all, so it didn't take much time to decide that she wanted to apologize to me and make things work because I'm what she needed to make her life better. After her big speech, I was dumbstruck for a few minutes. But as soon as I realized what she was saying, I hugged her without a word. And we actually ended up crying because of how relieved we were. It's been a while since that happened, and we've decided to spend the next 2 days together to make up for lost time. We're also planning on going on that beach trip that had been canceled next weekend, so I guess it all worked out for the best. Update 3. Hey, I thought the last update would be the final one, but my girlfriend's friends are awful people, so here I am again. 2 days ago, my girlfriend and I got back together, and she shared a selfie of us online with a cute little caption. Her friends saw that and immediately began bombarding her with calls and texts, accusing her of going against the girl code and calling her stupid and weak. They told her that she needed to delete the picture right away or else they cut her off. But my girlfriend didn't care anymore and told them to go right ahead. This seemed to piss them off, and they kicked her out of that group. I felt that that would be the most that they could do, but apparently not. They started posting all sorts of crap about my girlfriend, about how she was a weak-minded woman who had no self-respect, and one of them even posted that she deserved to be cheated on. They basically started the whole hate campaign against her, and even though she blocked them all, people were still sending her everything that was being posted about her and asking about it. Obviously, she's very upset about it, and I hate the fact that there's not much I can do to prevent it from happening. I asked her if she wanted me to get my lawyer involved so that we could put an end to this, but she declined, saying that doing something so extreme would only make matters worse. I'm obviously not going to do anything without making sure she's okay with it first, but it just sucks that she's having to deal with the situation at all. I feel really helpless and equally upset about whatever's happening. Her friends are just horrible women with absolutely no compassion or morals, and I can't even believe that they're doing something like this to someone they were friends with until 2 days ago. This is disgusting. Update 4. Well, my girlfriend got back at her friends and how I'm so proud of her for standing up to them and showing the world what kind of crappy people they really were. Her friends have been posting about her yesterday, and while she was terribly upset, in spite of the fact that she blocked them, she decided that she'd had enough of it today. She told me that she was going to make sure they regret talking crap about her online and expose them for the mean girls that they'd always been. She had a lot of texts from the group that she used to be in where her friends would gossip about other people from their high school and make fun of literally everyone, even the people they would pretend to be friends with outside of their circle. So she took several screenshots of those old chats and decided to post them online, tagging each and every person that her friends had been talking about. She herself had never been part of it because she didn't like gossiping, and most of the people that are her friends would talk about behind their backs were actually pretty nice, so they had no reason to be so mean to them at all. After a while, that post pretty much brought a whole barrage of pure hatred from her high school classmates against her old friends in the comments. She didn't block them for that very reason too, and was glad to see that her friends were struggling to defend themselves in whatever they'd said. Of course, they were pretty pissed off about it as well. They added her to a group call and threatened to ruin her life and stuff, now that she's gone against them. But I called them on their bluff this time and told them that if they even thought about trying to do anything else to mess with me and my girlfriend, then we'd be taking legal action against them. So they better stop. They tried to argue with me, but I wasn't having it and totally told them off about that juvenile. And frankly, idiotic behavior. I told them what I thought of them and how they were. Nothing but a bunch of losers, so-called alpha females who still relied on their parents and boyfriends to pay for them everywhere. I ended by telling them to get a real job and stop harassing my girlfriend for attention. And by then I could hear some of them crying while the others tried to attack my girlfriend by calling her a pick-me. But it didn't matter anymore. I hung up and blocked all of them from my girlfriend's phone. Once again. Now that we're finally done with this crap, my girlfriend and I are back to planning for our vacation, and we're making it bigger and better than whatever I had planned earlier. I think we've earned it. Story 4. My mother refused to help with my kid in an emergency because she's not my servant, but had no problem playing Grandma of the Year for my sister. So I stopped paying her bills and watched the meltdown from my peaceful, drama-free house. Hey Reddit, I, Kevin, 33 male, have never posted anything like this before, but I've been holding this in for way too long. My mom, Diana, 56 female, has always lived in her own world, one where she's the victim, the queen, and the only one who matters. I spent years trying to be the good son, paid her bills, covered her groceries, stayed quiet while she treated my sister Melissa, 31 female, like the second coming, and acted like I was just there. The favoritism was blatant, but when I asked for one small favor during a really rough week, she shut me down in a way that flipped a switch I didn't even know I had. That one moment set off lawsuits, guilt trips, full-blown delusion, and even drama at my wife's job. But the real kicker? The ending still makes people say, wait, you really did that? You'll want to hear how this one plays out. So, I'm not the kind of guy who asks for help. Not because I'm trying to prove anything, but because I've learned that asking my mom for something usually ends up worse than just handling it solo. She's one of those people who can make even the smallest favor feel like you just requested a kidney. But this one time, I didn't really have a choice. My wife, Rachel, 32 female, got hit hard with some nasty fever. Not like a sniffle and tea situation. This was, we're admitting her for observation type stuff. Her temperature was through the roof, and the doctor didn't want to take chances. So she got checked in, and I got handed Eli, our 5-year-old son, along with the sudden realization that I had zero backup. Our babysitter was out of town. Rachel's side of the family lives too far away. Most of my close friends were either working or had their own kids to juggle. So after going through every possible option, I caved and called my mom, Diana. Now let me explain something about Diana. She lives in her own fantasy world where she's always the victim, always the one doing everything for everyone else, even if she's literally doing nothing. She's one of those people who can somehow twist reality to make it seem like she's the one being wronged, no matter what actually happened. Still, I figured maybe she'd help this once, for her grandson, for a few hours. Not exactly a tall order. Hey, Mom, I started, already regretting it. Rachel's in the hospital. She came down with a bad fever, and I've got Eli with me. I just need someone to watch him for a couple hours while I run a few things and make sure she's okay. I'm expecting concern, maybe a hint of warmth. What I get? A sigh. The kind of sigh that lets you know she's about to say something unhelpful. I'm not your babysitter, Kevin, she said, all cold and righteous. I didn't sign up to raise your child. I swear I blinked like 3 times in disbelief. No one's asking you to raise him, Mom. Just watch him for a little while. It's an emergency. You always act like I have nothing better to do, she went on, ignoring the fact that she hasn't held a job in, what, a decade? I'm tired of being treated like a servant. Mind you, I hadn't asked her for anything in years. Literally. But apparently asking her to spend time with her grandson while her daughter-in-law is in the hospital counts as some kind of moral offense. Then I hear something. A child's voice laughing in the background. Wait, is that Max? I ask. She hesitates, then answers like it's nothing. Melissa needed me to take him today. She and Todd had some plans. So just to be clear, she was babysitting for my sister, who, by the way, lives 10 minutes away and is married with a husband who works from home. But they get help. Me? I get a guilt trip. Okay, so let me get this straight, I said, already clenching my jaw. You're watching Max right now, but you can't help with Eli because what? I'm not pitiful enough? Melissa is different, she said, like that explained anything. She's trying her best. She has responsibilities. Right. And I guess I just sit around in a hammock all day while money rains down from the sky. You do realize I've been paying your rent for 3 years, right? I said. Bills, groceries, your phone, what was it? Digital photo frame subscription? Don't throw that in my face, Kevin, she snapped. That's what children do. They take care of their mothers. And what do mothers do? I shot back. Because I thought helping each other out was part of this whole family thing. I'm not your servant, she repeated. You always act like I owe you something. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was insane. I've been covering this woman's living expenses since I got promoted at work. I never asked for anything in return. Not once. Meanwhile, Melissa's biggest accomplishment in the last 5 years was joining a yoga class. Then she drops the final blow. Melissa is my daughter. She needs me. Cool. So I'm just what? The debit card with legs? At that point, Eli tugged my sleeve. He was standing there watching me, confused. Maybe a little scared. I looked at him and realized this argument wasn't just annoying. It was pathetic. I was begging someone who clearly didn't see me or my son as worth the effort. I ended the call without another word. I took Eli with me. Handled it myself. Rachel stayed in the hospital overnight. I brought Eli to the lobby, gave him snacks, let him watch videos on my phone while I talked to the nurses. It was chaos, yeah, but we made it work. And honestly, it felt better than being treated like a beggar in my own family. The thing is, It wasn't just about that day. It was everything building up to it. Years of being their responsible son. Years of being expected to carry the weight while Melissa got praised for breathing. I paid Diana's bills. I made sure she had food. And the one time I needed her, truly needed her, she made it crystal clear where I stood. That was the day something in me just shut off. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just done. I didn't even feel the urge to rant. There was no speech. No long conversation with Rachel where I poured out everything. She was still in the hospital anyway, trying to fight off a fever that knocked her sideways. She had enough on her plate. So I kept things quiet. Cold. I started making lists in my head. First list? All the crap I had done for my mom over the years. Rent, utilities, groceries, monthly extras that always had some vague explanation. One time she said she needed a deposit for medical things. And then I saw her flaunting a new phone case online with rhinestones shaped like a flamingo. I'm not even kidding. The second list? Everything I'd ever gotten from her in return. Nothing. Not a thank you, not a warm meal, not even a framed picture of Eli. But you better believe Max's ugly macaroni art was front and center in her living room last time I visited. So a few days passed. Rachel came home. Weak, but better. Eli was fine. Resilient, like most kids. Life started getting back into rhythm. Then came the phone call. It was Sunday morning, right after I sat down with coffee and some peace for the first time all week. My phone buzzed. Mom, incoming call. I stared at it. My first instinct was to mute it and walk away. But a part of me wanted to hear what she'd say. Would she ask how Rachel was doing? How Eli handled everything? I answered. Kevin, she said, skipping right past the greeting. You know it's almost the end of the month, right? Just straight into it. Like clockwork. I need you to send over the usual. Rent's due Wednesday, and I'm running low on groceries. I also need that refill for the card. You know, for gas and laundry. I sat there in silence for a second, sipping my coffee. Not even blinking. Yeah, that's not happening anymore, I said. Dead silence on the line. Then the voice changed. That fake sweetness that she tries when she senses something slipping. What do you mean? You're just stressed, sweetie, I understand. It's been a tough week. No, I'm serious, I said, calm and clear. I'm not sending you another dime. Not this month. Not next month. Not ever again. There was a pause. Then she laughed. Not a normal laugh. One of those annoyed, you must be joking kind of chuckles. Kevin, don't be ridiculous. I'm your mother. And I'm a husband. And a dad. And someone who's been bankrolling your lifestyle for 3 straight years while getting treated like garbage in return. She gasped like I'd just insulted the Pope. You think raising you was free? Do you know what I sacrificed for you? Oh, the greatest hits album was coming out now. I let her play it. You were a sick baby, Kevin. You cried all the time. I stayed up for nights. I gave up everything for you. And now you want to abandon me? You mean the same way you bailed on Eli when Rachel was in the hospital? The same way you're sitting there playing Grandma of the Year for Melissa's kid while treating mine like an afterthought? Her tone dropped. Melissa's situation is different. You have a family. You have income. And I have bills, a mortgage, childcare. You think I'm just rolling in it? You make more than Melissa's husband. Cool. Let him pay your rent then. Then came the yelling. You are being so ungrateful. I carried you inside me. I wiped your nose. I gave you life. Yeah, I said. And I repaid you with 3 years of direct deposits. That chapter's over. I could practically hear her pacing. I'd seen this routine before. The building rage, the manipulation, the switch flip from guilt to anger to full-blown drama. You're going to regret this, Kevin. Mark my words. Melissa would never treat me this way. Good. Then she can be the one to keep your lights on. She hung up. No dramatic exit, no tears. Just a pissed-off slam of a phone call ending. I sat back, finished my coffee, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief, like stepping out of a stuffy room and finally catching fresh air. Rachel came into the kitchen a few minutes later, wrapped in her robe, moving slowly but looking better. She could tell by my face something had happened. She call? She asked. I nodded. Wanted her monthly stipend. Rachel raised an eyebrow. And? Told her the bank of Kevin is closed. She didn't say anything at first. Just walked over, kissed me on the cheek, and grabbed a slice of toast. That was her way of saying finally. I didn't think that would be the end of it. With my mom, it's never that simple. But something had shifted. I wasn't the desperate to please son anymore. I wasn't going to get yelled into guilt trips or emotionally blackmailed by someone who made me feel like a walking debit card. I had a family now. A real one. A A wife who appreciated me. A kid who thought I was a superhero for letting him eat a second dessert. That was the stuff that mattered. My mom? She could figure out how to pay her own bills. Maybe she and Melissa could start a GoFundMe for emotional damages. Either way, I was done playing the role of the forgotten son with the open wallet. I didn't make some grand speech about it. I just stopped. Quietly. No texts, no explanations, no dramatic send-off. I'd been holding my breath for years in that role, and suddenly I could breathe again. For a solid week, things were calm. Rachel was home, still moving slow from the fever, but getting there. Eli was back to asking constant questions about sharks and making up stories about dragons that live in the bathtub. It was peaceful. A little messy, but peaceful. The kind of messy that makes sense. Then, of course, it couldn't last. Melissa texted me, short and dramatic. Kevin, call me now. It's serious. Mom is in the hospital. And I just stared at it. Not gonna lie, I didn't feel alarmed, just annoyed. It read less like emergency and more like bait, but I called her anyway, mostly out of curiosity. She picked up quick, voice already shaky, like she'd been practicing. According to her, our mother collapsed. Too much stress. Apparently, being cut off from her monthly lifeline was just too much. Melissa said she took herself to the ER, drove herself, no ambulance, no unconscious episode. Just a dizzy spell and a broken heart, I guess. Melissa started laying it on thick, said our mom had been crying all night, saying she felt abandoned, like she'd been betrayed by her own son. That this, whatever this was all my fault. I didn't say much, I just let her keep talking. It was the same pattern as always. Turn a normal consequence into a moral crime. Make it emotional. Make it dramatic. And above all, make it my fault. The weird part was how calm I felt. A few months ago, this would have made me feel sick with guilt. But now, it just felt recycled. After I hung up, I did what any rational person would do. I called the hospital. No shame about it either. I wasn't about to panic over some staged fainting scene. Sure enough, the nurse confirmed she'd been in. Mild dehydration. Released that morning, not admitted. No overnight stay, just a quick pit stop and some paperwork. I wasn't even surprised. Honestly, the only shocking part was how fast they played the hospital card. I figured I'd at least get a week of passive-aggressive silence first. I didn't respond to Melissa's follow-up text that said Mom was emotionally devastated, or the one that hinted I should come by and talk to her. I figured if she wanted to cry about betrayal, she could do it with the air conditioning and vending machines the hospital provided. Rachel was the one who really helped me see it clearly. When I told her what happened, she wasn't shocked either. She just sort of shook her head and said, "You know she's rewriting the story again, right?" And she was right. That's exactly what it was. A rewrite. Mom wasn't going to sit with the fact that she told me to get a babysitter while she babysat Max. She wasn't going to own up to anything. So instead, she turned it into this Shakespearean tragedy where I was the villain and she was some noble mother discarded by an ungrateful son. I remembered so many moments over the years that looked just like this one. Birthdays where she skipped Eli's party because she was too tired, but then posted selfies at Melissa's house an hour later. Family dinners where she'd spend the whole time praising Melissa for trying so hard while I got told I looked tired and should smile more. This wasn't a new behavior. It was just the first time I didn't respond the way she wanted. No guilt, no check, no visit, just silence. And it felt good. That weekend, Melissa kept sending updates I never asked for. Stuff like Mom still hasn't eaten much and she's trying to stay strong. I didn't reply to any of it. Not because I was being mean, but because I had nothing left to give. I spent that Saturday building a giant cardboard spaceship with Eli in the living room. He asked me if it could fly to Grandma's house. I said it couldn't. He asked why. I said the batteries only worked for people who actually wanted to see us. He laughed like it was a joke. I just smiled and handed him another marker. The guilt that used to live in my chest like some squatter's pet? Gone. Replaced by a quiet kind of peace. Sunday night, I got a notification from Facebook. Diana had posted some cryptic, passive-aggressive status. Some people only love you when you're useful to them. But I forgive. I always forgive. Because that's what real mothers do. 32 likes. Mostly from distant relatives and old church friends. I didn't engage. I didn't even roll my eyes. I just turned off notifications for her posts. It wasn't worth my time anymore. That's the part people don't tell you about setting boundaries. It's not just some angry fight or a dramatic moment. Sometimes it's just choosing silence. Choosing not to respond. Choosing to build a cardboard spaceship instead of walking back into someone else's drama. The silence from Melissa and Diana held for about 3 days after that. Not a peep. I figured maybe they'd moved on to sulking in group chats or gossiping with the cousins, who only remember I exist when someone's in the hospital or dead. But then came Thursday. Rachel was back at work by then. Still not 100%, but stable. Her job's pretty chill. Admin role at a clinic, front office stuff, phones, forms, scheduling, quiet space, clean professional environment. You'd expect a certain level of decency from anyone who walks through the doors. Too bad decency isn't something Diana packs in her purse. I got a text from Rachel around noon, just 3 words. She's here, unreal, followed by a second. Don't come yet. The fact that she said yet was enough to make me throw on shoes and grab the keys. By the time I got there, Rachel was already standing outside the building. Calm, arms crossed, still in her scrubs. And just a few feet away, Diana was being escorted out by a security guard, still muttering under her breath, still clutching that peeling gold purse like it was full of dignity she didn't earn. I pulled up, parked halfway over a line like a lunatic, and stepped out. Rachel just pointed at the front doors. She showed up like it was a normal visit, smiled at the receptionist, asked to speak to me, said it was urgent. Diana wasn't subtle. She walked in there like she was the one doing Rachel a favor, all warm voice and fake concern. People in the waiting room actually smiled at her. She always knew how to play friendly when she needed an audience. Rachel continued explaining, and I just stood there trying not to grind my teeth. She waited until we were in the break room and no one else was around. Then it flipped, totally unhinged. I didn't interrupt. I let her finish. She told me I ruined you. I blinked. What? She said, and I quote, "You poisoned my son's heart. You're the reason he's turned against me. You've been brainwashing him since the day you got married." I couldn't even process it at first. It was such a load of psychotic nonsense that my brain needed a second to translate it. Rachel wasn't even mad. She looked tired, more irritated than anything. She said I robbed her of her motherhood, she added, that you were always a good boy until I got in the way. She even said I lured you in with pity, because I knew you were too kind to leave a sick girl alone. My jaw tightened. I had no clue what that even meant. Rachel had the flu when we met. Once. That was her sick girl story, apparently. Then she called me controlling, that I kept you from helping her, said I turned you into a cold, heartless man. I was shaking my head, trying to stop myself from laughing. What did you say? Rachel shrugged. I told her this wasn't the 1800s, and that you make your own choices. Then I told her to leave the clinic immediately, or I'd call security. Apparently, that set Diana off. She started raising her voice. Not full screaming, but enough for people in the hallway to hear. Started talking about how she's sacrificed everything to raise me. How some women marry good men just to break them. One of the nurses stepped in, tried to calm her down. Diana turned on her too. Called her a nosy brat. That's when the front desk called security. She left before they arrived, Rachel said. Stormed out calling me a snake. A snake. That was a new one. Rachel took a deep breath, looked at me like she was finally letting herself exhale. I didn't want to tell you right away, she said, but I knew she'd spin it her way somehow, so I figured I'd better get ahead of it. I nodded. Thanks for handling it. I didn't do anything special, she replied. I just didn't let her pull me into her insanity. I offered to drive her home. She insisted on finishing her shift. She wasn't going to let Diana ruin her day. Back at home, I kept thinking about the whole thing. How Diana had fully convinced herself that Rachel was some evil mastermind. Like I was just a brainless idiot following orders. It was laughable, but also sad. Like watching someone self-destruct with the same fire they expect everyone else to put out for them. Around dinner time, Rachel finally got home. She looked exhausted, but fine. We didn't talk much. Eli was too busy pretending his spaghetti was a monster. The next morning, Melissa sent me a text. It was long, full of passive digs. I heard Mom tried to visit Rachel. She was trying to make peace. You two didn't have to embarrass her like that. Make peace? She went to Rachel's workplace to rant about mind control. That's not peace. That's just delusion with lipstick on it. I didn't answer. Instead, I printed out a timeline of every deposit I had made to Diana over the last 3 years. I stored it in a folder. I added texts, voicemails, screenshots. I wasn't planning on doing anything with them just yet, but the way things were escalating, I figured it was better to be ready. Rachel supported it. She didn't push me either way, but she said, if she's this bold, she might try something worse. And she was right, because Diana wasn't done. She thought she could guilt me, fail, then drag Rachel into it, fail again, and still keep pushing. And that told me something important. She wasn't just entitled. She was dangerous, and I wasn't going to let her anywhere near my wife or my kid again. After the stunt she pulled at Rachel's work, I knew Diana wasn't just being dramatic. She was spiraling. It's like she couldn't handle not being in control of the narrative anymore. She was used to playing victim and being believed without question. That stopped working, and now she was looking for whatever scraps of leverage she could still grab onto. At this point, I had blocked her number. I wasn't doing it out of spite. I just didn't want to give her the option to reach me and blow up my day. Melissa tried to play the in-between, but I ignored most of her messages too. I didn't need a translator for delusion. That was the week the envelope showed up. No name on the front, just my address typed. Inside, a printed document with a court seal on it. Small claim summons. Diana was suing me for breach of verbal contract and emotional distress. I sat down with it at the kitchen table and read the thing twice, then a third time just to make sure I wasn't missing a punchline. She actually wrote on paper that I had promised lifelong financial support and that suddenly ending payments caused her significant harm, both emotional and economic. Rachel walked in while I was holding the paper like it was radioactive. She finally did it, I said. She took it to court. Rachel read it over. Didn't even flinch. Guess she wants to get laughed out of a courtroom now. Honestly, I wasn't even that stressed. Mostly annoyed, but I figured if she was taking it that far, I'd better be ready. So I pulled out that folder I started building after her work visit. It had everything. Bank transfers, timestamps, texts, even the screenshot of her Flamingo phone case she posted the same week she claimed she couldn't afford groceries. I also included the call log showing how I asked her for one favor, watching Eli, and how she said no while actively babysitting Melissa's son. I even had the hospital statement showing her collapse was nothing more than mild dehydration with a vending machine visit. Court day came quick. It wasn't some dramatic trial like on TV, just a basic small claims hearing in a dull room with folding chairs and a judge who looked like he'd seen every kind of nonsense the city had to offer. Diana was already there when I walked in. Full black dress, hair curled, like she was attending a funeral. She didn't look at me, just sat stiff with a folder of papers on her lap. I wasn't nervous. I didn't even bring a lawyer. Didn't need one. They called our names, and we went up. When the judge gave her the floor, Diana launched right into it, like she'd been rehearsing this speech in the mirror every night. She told the judge she was an abandoned elderly woman, that her only son had promised to support her indefinitely, and that his sudden refusal caused her to suffer. She pulled out highlighted bank statements showing the money I had sent her over the years, like it was proof of a binding agreement. The judge, to his credit, let her finish without a word. He just nodded occasionally, glanced at her paperwork, and waited until she sat down. Then it was my turn. I handed over my folder. I walked him through the timeline. How the payments were never part of a contract, verbal or written. How I supported her out of kindness, not obligation. How the money stopped only after she refused to help when my wife was hospitalized, and she was watching my nephew instead. The judge skimmed the papers, paused on the screenshot of her Facebook post, where she was bragging about buying herself a little treat the same week she told me she couldn't afford bread. Then he turned to Diana. Ma'am, I see no indication that your son entered into any agreement to support you. It appears these were gifts, not payments in exchange for services. Diana's jaw twitched. But he always said, he would take care of me. He told me I could rely on him. And now he's decided not to. That's not illegal, the judge replied. There's no law that says an adult child must financially support a parent. She tried one more swing, claiming emotional distress, but the judge cut her off. Ma'am, being upset by someone's personal decision is not grounds for a financial judgment. That was it. Dismissed. No further discussion. She just stood there like she'd been slapped in slow motion. She didn't say thank you. Didn't even gather her papers. She walked out stiff, like a mannequin on a bad day. I didn't follow her. I waited a few minutes, then left the courthouse through the side door. I wasn't in the mood for another meltdown or one of her lectures in the parking lot. Back home, Rachel had already made lunch. Nothing fancy, just grilled cheese and tomato soup. I sat down and filled her in. She tried to play the emotionally abandoned mother card, I said, dipping a sandwich. Judge didn't buy it. Rachel raised her glass of water like a toast. To public records and paper trails. We laughed. Not because it was funny, but because there was finally nothing left for her to twist. She had taken it to the end of the road and got shut down in front of a real authority figure, someone who wasn't emotionally manipulated by tears or guilt. It felt final. There were no calls that evening, no texts, no follow-ups from Melissa, no cryptic Facebook posts or shared quotes about being wronged, just quiet. And it was glorious. 2 weeks of peace. 2 whole weeks where I didn't have to deal with flying guilt trips or weird phone calls pretending to be emergencies. It was the longest stretch of silence I'd had since I stopped paying Diana's bills. I'd almost started to believe it was over. Then Rachel got a text from one of her friends, who lives near Melissa. Pretty sure your mother-in-law just moved in with your sister. Saw her unloading bags with that leopard print purse? So there it was. Diana had officially landed at Melissa's place. And yeah, I saw it coming. Her ATM aka me stopped funding her rent, so she most probably got kicked out, and Melissa was always the favorite, always the one Diana claimed understood her. If anyone was going to take her in, it was her. What did surprise me was how fast it went downhill. By day 3, Melissa texted Rachel saying her mom was adjusting. Code for, she's already making people miserable. By day 5, the updates changed. Less spin, more tension. Apparently, Diana had started her usual routine. Comments about how Todd, her husband, never helps enough, how Mac should eat fewer processed snacks, how Melissa's laundry smelled cheap. It was always the same playbook. She'd show up, act like a saint for 48 hours, then slowly start turning into a live-in manager no one hired. Then day 6 hit. Todd gave Melissa an ultimatum. Either Diana goes or he does. And that's when Melissa showed her true colors. She didn't defend her mom. She didn't get emotional. She didn't try to compromise. She folded instantly, packed Diana's bags while she was taking a nap and told her she had to go. Rachel found out before I did. Melissa kicked her out this morning, she said, handing me her phone. Told Todd she wasn't going to risk her marriage over this mess. I sat down and laughed harder than I had in months. So after all the favoritism, the blind loyalty, the pedestal Diana built for Melissa, she got kicked out like a bad roommate the minute things got uncomfortable. And not because Melissa grew a conscience or had some breakthrough. She just didn't want to lose her husband. She took Diana in to look like the good daughter. But when things got inconvenient, she flipped without hesitation. All self-preservation. No spine. Rachel scrolled to the next text. She didn't even let her finish her coffee. Just dropped her off at a bus stop near the shopping center. Now that was brutal. Diana didn't call me. She didn't message. But I heard she tried calling some of my cousins that afternoon, asking if anyone had a spare couch. Nobody bit. Her meltdown at court had apparently made the rounds, and people were keeping their distance. I imagined the look on her face sitting at that bus stop with her leopard print purse and nowhere to go. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because it was the first time in her life she had no one left to blame but herself. She gambled everything on Melissa's loyalty, and Melissa folded like a lawn chair. A few days later, I ran into Todd at a gas station. He looked free, like a man who'd just moved out of a haunted house. Surprised you're still married, I said. He shook his head. Barely. I told her if she ever pulls that again, we're done for real. Then he said something that stuck with me. Your mom doesn't know how to live anywhere without trying to run it. It's like the second she steps inside, she thinks she owns the place. But I nodded. That's been her thing forever. She called me Kevin, he added. Dead serious. Looked me in the eye and said I'm acting just like her son, like it was an insult. I actually laughed. She's been trying to use my name like a curse word lately. Doesn't realize how much that backfires. He smiled, shook his head, and got back in his car. The next update came from someone on Facebook. A random acquaintance of Melissa's posted a vague status about watching someone kick out their own mother. No names, but it didn't take a genius to figure it out. Diana had officially become someone else's cautionary tale. Melissa didn't reach out. Not to apologize, not to vent, not to explain. I guess she figured I'd find out eventually. And she was right. I found out. I just didn't care. She wasn't some victim in this. She'd only helped Diana out of image and guilt. And when it cost her peace, she hit eject so fast it gave Diana whiplash. It wasn't noble. It was convenient. It was... Rachel summed it up perfectly. She wanted the credit of being the good daughter without the cost. Exactly. Diana probably saw it as betrayal. I guarantee she never imagined Melissa would be the one to throw her out. But that's what happens when you build your life on favoritism. Eventually, the golden child drops you too. By the end of the week, Diana had no place to stay, no money coming in, and no one in her corner. And the one person she'd always dismissed, me, was at home with a stable family, a peaceful house, and not a single ounce of guilt left. That didn't stop her from trying one more time. She showed up. I don't know how she got to my neighborhood. Bus, Uber, guilt-powered broomstick? Either way, there she was. Sitting on the porch like a statue, arms crossed, face tight, and that purse with the peeling gold zipper sitting beside her like it was also exhausted. Rachel saw her first. She tapped the window and said, "Your mother's out front." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. No yelling, No build-up, just me, standing there while Diana looked up like she'd been waiting years for a moment like this. Kevin, she said, voice worn and flat, I have nowhere to go. I didn't respond. I called everyone, she went on. Melissa blocked my number. Todd won't take my calls. Your cousins pretend they don't see my messages. I still didn't respond. She stood up slowly. Her eyes scanned the front of the house like she was mentally appraising it. Like maybe she was already imagining where her throw pillows would go. I know I made mistakes, she said, but I'm still your mother. I finally looked her in the eye. You're not here for an apology. You're here because you ran out of options. She flinched. Not much, but enough to know she felt it. I don't need much, she said, just until I figure something out. And what happens when something takes a year? I asked. Or 5. It won't, she said quickly. I just need time, a chance, somewhere safe. For a moment, the silence stretched. Rachel was probably watching through the blinds. Eli was inside on the tablet. Life had finally become quiet, manageable, free. And here stood the woman who'd spent years stomping through my peace with entitlement like it was her birthright. Everything in me wanted to tell her to leave, but I didn't. I stepped aside. 1 week, I said. No longer. Her eyebrows twitched like she didn't quite believe it. I didn't too, to be honest. She nodded and picked up her bag. She walked in like she hadn't been kicked out of 3 homes and a courtroom in the span of a month, like she was just coming home from vacation. She smiled at Rachel, who did not smile back. She waved at Eli, who ignored her. I didn't explain myself to Rachel that night. I didn't need to. She knew exactly what this was. It wasn't mercy. It was containment. A final, slow-moving crash test that would prove once and for all who this woman really was. Not to me, I already knew, but to herself. Diana had spent her whole life seeing herself as the one who gave, the one who suffered, the one who deserved. She was about to spend a week watching everything she broke from the inside out. Melissa had already tossed her. Todd left without blinking. The cousins went radio silent. And now? She was stuck living under the roof of the same son she humiliated, sued, and treated like a disposable wallet. For the first time, Diana had no audience left to perform for. No golden child, no backup plan, just the mirror. And yeah, I let her in. Because watching her squirm under that silence was worth every second. Story 5. My mom demanded I pay $15,000 for my sister's wedding. When I said no, she stole my credit card and drained my savings. But I couldn't stop laughing. The next day, my sister called me panicking. All right, Reddit, this one's savage. My mom drained my savings to fund my sister's wedding and thought she was being slick about it. Spoiler, she wasn't. It backfired in the most satisfying way possible. Grab your popcorn. Can't wait to tell you the whole thing. Look, I, 25 male, have always known my mom played favorites. It's one of those things you just accept growing up. Some kids get the spotlight, others get the bill. I was always the latter. My younger sister, Audrey? Golden child from day one. Private school paid for, car handed to her at 16. College tuition covered without her working a single shift. Meanwhile, I was grinding through community college and working nights at a warehouse to afford textbooks. You know, character building or whatever. But this was a whole new level of audacity. It was a Thursday evening, around 7. I'd just gotten home from my job at the engineering firm, still in my work clothes, about to grab a drink and decompress. That's when my mom walked into my apartment. Yeah, she still had a key. Another mistake I was about to regret. With that look on her face. She didn't even sit down. Just stood there in my living room, arms crossed, and dropped it like a bomb. Nick, Audrey's wedding is in 2 months. She needs $15,000. You're going to give it to her. Not, can you help? Not, would you consider? Just a straight-up demand. 15 grand. I set down my drink real slow, trying to process what I just heard. Mom, that's my entire savings account. I've been building that for 3 years. Her expression didn't change. That cold, calculated look she'd perfected over decades. You don't need it right now. Audrey's getting married. This is her special day. Family comes first, Nick. Or did I raise you to be selfish? There it was. The guilt and manipulation she'd been using since I was a kid. Paint me as the bad guy for wanting to keep my own money that I'd earned through 60-hour work weeks and skipping vacations. I took a breath, stayed calm. Mom, I worked my butt off for that money. Audrey's 24. Her fiancé Peter has a job. Between them, they're pulling in twice what I make. If they can't afford the wedding they want, they should scale it down or save up. Wrong answer. Her face hardened like concrete. So you're going to embarrass your sister? Let her walk down the aisle in some cheap venue because her brother's too greedy to help family? Everyone will know you refused. Your aunts, your cousins, everyone. The threat was clear. She'd make me the villain at every family gathering for the rest of my life. Paint me as the selfish son who let his sister's wedding fall apart. Never mind that I'd bailed them out before. Covered mom's car payment twice last year. Paid for Audrey's emergency dental work that somehow included cosmetic veneers. But sure, I'm the greedy one here. I'm not paying for Audrey's wedding, I said firmly, looking her dead in the eye. That's final. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes going dark. You're making a mistake, Nick. A big one. Don't say I didn't warn you. She turned and walked out, slamming my apartment door hard enough to rattle the frame. I sat there in the silence that followed, that sinking feeling in my gut telling me this wasn't over. I should have changed my locks that night. Should have frozen my credit. Should have done a lot of things. But I figured even she wouldn't cross certain lines. Yeah, I was wrong about that. I woke up Friday morning to my phone buzzing like crazy. I had 3 missed calls from my bank's fraud department and 2 text alerts. My stomach dropped before I even opened them. Logged into my banking app and my worst fears were confirmed. My available credit cratered. Nearly $15,000 in pending charges posted overnight. My checking balance was untouched. This was all on my credit card. The transaction history made me want to put my fist through the wall. Wedding venue deposit, $5,000. Catering down payment, $4,500. Photography package, $2,800. Florist, $1,500. Dress alterations, $980. Reception decorations, $467. The charges kept going, all made within a 6-hour window. All on my credit card I kept locked in my desk drawer. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely dial the bank. Spent 20 minutes on the phone confirming what I already knew. Someone had used my card for a shopping spree, and that someone had my full card details including the CVV code. The fraud rep asked if anyone had access to my apartment. My mother has a key, I said, and she demanded this exact amount yesterday. The rep went quiet for a second. Sir, I'm very sorry, but you'll need to file a police report for fraud. We can start the dispute process, but with family involvement, this could get complicated. I hung up and just sat there on my couch, trying to wrap my head around it. My own mother had broken into my apartment, found my credit card, and ran up nearly $15,000 on my card to fund my sister's wedding. Not asked, not borrowed, stole. My buddy Kai, we'd worked together for 5 years, called right then for our usual Friday coffee run. Heard something in my voice when I answered. You sound like someone pissed in your cereal. What happened, dude? I told him everything. He was silent for a long moment, then said, Bro, you need to handle this now or they'll keep doing it forever. He was right. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about my mother thinking she could rob me and face 0 consequences. I called my mom. She picked up on the 3rd ring, sounding cheerful, like she hadn't just committed felony fraud 12 hours earlier. Morning, Nick. I hope you've had time to think about... You stole my credit card. I cut her off, voice cold. You stole $15,000. Silence. Then in that patronizing tone she'd perfected, Oh, don't be so dramatic. I didn't steal anything. I just handled things. Audrey needed help and you were being stubborn. You'll thank me later when you see how beautiful the wedding is. The nerve on this woman. She didn't even deny it. Didn't apologize. She acted like she's doing me a favor. I want my card back. Now. And you're going to cancel every single one of those charges. She laughed. Nick, honey, it's already done. The deposits are non-refundable. Just accept it and move on. Besides, what are you going to do? Call the police on your own mother? There it was. The real power play. She thought I wouldn't press charges because of family loyalty, because of how it would look, because she'd raised me to never cause a scene. Too bad, she'd miscalculated. I laughed too, but there was no humor in it. Well, about that. You've got 24 hours to return the money, all of it, or I'm filing a police report. You wouldn't dare. I hung up. Then I called the bank back and officially reported the card stolen and all charges as fraudulent. The rep walked me through the next steps, including filing a police report, which I scheduled for the next morning. Then I did something that would pay off later. I called my dad. See, my parents divorced when I was 19, about 6 years ago. Dad had moved 2 states over, remarried, built a new life. The divorce had been messy. Dad discovered Mom had been siphoning money from their joint accounts for years. It's why he left. He picked up on the 2nd ring. Nick, is everything okay? Dad, I need to ask you something about the will you told me about before. the one Grandpa left. Saturday morning, I showed up at the police station with printed bank statements, transaction records, text message screenshots, and a timeline of events. The officer who took my report, Detective Bella, was professional, but skeptical at first. "You're filing charges against your mother for credit card fraud?" she asked, reviewing the documents. "Yeah. She stole my card from my apartment and spent my entire savings without permission. I have evidence she was in my apartment." That got her attention. I pulled up the security footage on my phone, something I'd requested from my building manager that morning. Clear as day, there's my mom sneaking into my place in the middle of the night, leaving 40 minutes later with a small purse. Detective Bella's expression shifted from skeptical to seriously concerned. "This is substantial evidence, Mr. Callahan. With this footage and the financial records, we can definitely move forward. Are you certain you want to press charges?" "I'm certain." She nodded and started the paperwork. Told me it would take a few days to process, that they'd need to interview my mother and Audrey, and that I should prepare for potential backlash. I was counting on the backlash. It was part of the plan. Meanwhile, Mom had apparently told Audrey what happened because my phone started blowing up with texts from my sister. Angry ones. "How could you do this to me? My wedding is in 8 weeks. Everyone is going to know what a selfish jerk you are. I hope you're happy ruining my special day." Actually, I was. I didn't respond to any of them, just screenshotted everything and added it to my evidence folder. Sunday evening, I got a call from my uncle, Mom's brother Paul. He'd always been more reasonable than her, though he usually stayed out of family drama. Emphasis on usually. "Nick, your mother called me in hysterics. Says you're trying to have her arrested over a misunderstanding?" "Uncle Paul, she stole my credit card and spent $15,000 without permission. That's not a misunderstanding." He sighed. "Look, I'm not saying what she did was right, but is this really worth tearing the family apart? Can't you just work it out?" Yes, I'm pretty sure he meant, can't you just let her rob you in peace? She had a chance to make it right. She refused. This isn't about the money anymore. It's about them thinking they can do whatever they want without consequences." There was a long pause. "Your mom mentioned something about fighting this. Said she has resources." That made my blood run cold. Resources meant lawyers, which is exactly why my conversation with Dad the other day was so important. After I hung up, I pulled out the folder Dad had overnighted to me. Inside was documentation about my grandfather's estate, specifically the trust fund he'd set up before he died 4 years ago. Grandpa had been a successful small business owner and sold his company for a decent chunk of change. Split the money between his kids and grandkids, but with very specific conditions outlined in the trust. The key clause, buried in legal language: any beneficiary convicted of fraud, theft, embezzlement, or financial crimes against another family member shall forfeit their entire share of the trust to be redistributed to the remaining beneficiaries. Mom's share? $180,000, currently sitting in a managed trust she couldn't access until she turned 62 next year. Audrey had a smaller share, $45,000, set to unlock when she turned 28. The best part? Grandpa had named me as the secondary trustee after Dad. If Mom got convicted of fraud, I'd have authority to enforce the forfeiture clause. Every penny would be redistributed to me and my cousins. Dad had warned me about this clause years ago when the will was read. Said Grandpa specifically included it because he'd seen Mom's manipulative tendencies and wanted to protect the family from them. At the time, I thought it was paranoid. Now, it was my nuclear option. Monday morning, I got a call from Detective Bella. "Mr. Callahan, we've reviewed your case. Given the evidence, we're moving forward with charges. Your mother will be contacted this week for questioning." "What about my sister? She knowingly benefited from the fraud." "That's trickier. If she genuinely didn't know the money was stolen, we can't charge her, but we'll be asking questions." After we hung up, I texted Audrey. One simple message: "Every charge made on my stolen card needs to be refunded immediately. You have 48 hours. Her response came within minutes. "Are you insane? The deposits are non-refundable. The wedding is in 7 weeks. I'm not canceling anything." I sent back, "Then you'll be getting married while Mom's dealing with fraud charges. Your choice. You're bluffing. You won't actually do this." I didn't respond. Wednesday morning, the bomb dropped. Detective Bella and another officer showed up at Mom's house to question her about the fraud charges. My aunt, who lived nearby, texted me within an hour with a play-by-play. Said the cops were there for 90 minutes, that Mom came out looking pale and shaken, that Audrey screamed at them from the driveway. That afternoon, my phone rang. Mom's lawyer. Some guy named Richard Voss, who apparently specialized in family law and white-collar defense. Wonderful. "Mr. Callahan, I represent Eleanor Callahan regarding the allegations you've made. I'm calling to discuss a resolution. My client admits there was a misunderstanding regarding the use of your credit card. She's prepared to set up a payment plan to return the $15,000 over the course of 12 months. In exchange, you drop the charges. I almost laughed. 12 months? A payment plan? For stolen money? Your client stole my card and committed fraud. There's video evidence. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's a crime. The answer is no. His tone hardened. Mr. Callahan, I'd advise you to reconsider. Pursuing criminal charges against your mother will be expensive, time-consuming, and will permanently damage your family relationships. Is that really worth $15,000? Yes, I said flatly. Very well, but I should warn you, we'll be mounting a vigorous defense. This will get ugly. Waiting for it. I hung up. After I hung up, my phone immediately started buzzing with texts from various family members. My Aunt Laura, Uncle Paul, even some cousins I barely talked to, all of them trying to convince me to drop the charges, to be the bigger person, to think about Audrey's wedding. Not one of them called what Mom did wrong. It was all about protecting her and making sure Audrey's big day wasn't ruined. Funny how family comes first only applies when they need something from me. Everyone knew Mom played favorites, knew she manipulated people, and knew Audrey was spoiled rotten. But they all went along with it because it was easier than confronting them. Well, I was done making things easy. That evening, Kai came over with pizza and drinks. He'd been checking in daily since the theft, making sure I was holding up. So they lawyered up, he said. Does that mean you're in trouble? Nah. I've got security footage, bank records, and her own admission on a recorded call. She's screwed and she knows it. The lawyer's just trying to minimize damage. What about the wedding? I pulled up Audrey's Instagram on my phone. She'd posted a long, dramatic story about how her toxic brother was trying to ruin her special day, and how family should support each other. Comments were mostly supportive. Her friends didn't know the full story. She's playing the victim card hard, I said. Kai shook his head. Man, your family's something else. What's your endgame here? I told him about the trust fund, about Grandpa's forfeiture clause, about the $180,000 Mom would lose if convicted. He let out a low whistle. Dang, that's tactical. It's justice. She spent my whole life taking from me. Money, time, peace of mind. Now she's about to learn a lesson. And Audrey? She's collateral damage. She could have done the right thing and refunded the charges. Instead, she's playing the victim. Kai raised his drink. Gotta say, man, I respect the heck out of this. Most people would have folded by now. The next few days were a blur of legal preparation. Detective Bella called with updates. The investigation was moving forward. They'd seized Mom's financial records and found evidence of other questionable transactions. Apparently, this wasn't the first time Mom had borrowed family members' money without asking. Friday afternoon, exactly 1 week after the theft, I got a call from Peter, Audrey's fiancé. I barely knew the guy, but he sounded stressed. Nick, man, we need to talk. Can you meet me for coffee? Just us? Interesting. I agreed to meet him Saturday morning. Saturday morning, I showed up at the coffee shop early, got myself situated in a back corner booth where we could talk privately. Peter arrived 10 minutes later looking nervous, and like he hadn't slept in days. He sat across from me. Thanks for meeting me. I know things are really messed up right now. That's one way to put it. He took a breath. Look, I need you to understand something. I didn't know your mom stole that money. Audrey told me you'd agreed to contribute to the wedding, that you were happy to help. I leaned back studying him. He seemed genuine. And you believed that? Even though I've never spoken to you about the wedding once? Audrey said you two had a complicated relationship, that you were more comfortable talking through your mom. I thought it was weird, but he trailed off, running a hand through his hair. I wanted to believe her. We're getting married in 7 weeks. So what changed? The cops showed up at her apartment Thursday to ask questions. I was there, heard everything. When they left, I asked her point blank if she knew the money was stolen. She broke down and admitted everything. That got my attention. Everything? Peter nodded, looking sick. Your mom didn't just steal your card that night. She'd been planning it for weeks. Had Audrey scope out your apartment during a visit 2 months ago to figure out where you kept your wallet, your documents, everything. Audrey was the one who suggested hitting the account at night when you'd be asleep and less likely to notice right away. My hands clenched into fists under the table. So Audrey wasn't just a passive beneficiary. She was an active participant. The whole surprised sister act was exactly that. An act. She planned this with Mom? I asked, keeping my voice level. Yeah. Apparently your mom had been trying to figure out how to access your money for months. Audrey's the one who pointed out you'd probably say no if asked directly, so they needed to just take it. and here I thought my trust issues couldn't get any worse. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Peter looked me in the eye. Because I'm not marrying someone who helps rob their own brother. I called off the wedding this morning. The words hung in the air between us. I hadn't expected that. You called it off? Gave her back the ring an hour before I came here. I told her I can't build a life with someone capable of that kind of deception. She's been calling and texting nonstop, but I blocked her. He pulled out his phone, showed me a string of increasingly frantic messages from Audrey. Peter, please. And it was Mom's idea, and I'll make it right. And finally, you're going to regret this. She also said she'd tell everyone I left her at the altar that I cheated, whatever makes her look like the victim. I'm prepared for it, though. I already told my family the truth. I respected that. Guy had a backbone. What do you need from me? Nothing, really. Nothing. Just wanted you to know that not everyone in this situation is against you, and I thought you should know the full extent of what they planned. There's more. Of course there was. Peter pulled out his phone again, opened his photos, and showed me screenshots of text messages between Audrey and Mom, plans to access my apartment, discussions about which vendors to book, even a message from Audrey saying Nick's too passive to actually follow through with charges. He'll fold once the wedding gets close. That one stung. Can I get copies of these? I asked. Already emailed them to you. Figure the cops might want them for their case. We talked for another 30 minutes. When we parted ways, Peter shook my hand. For what it's worth, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Your family's been making you think you're the problem. You're not. They are. I drove home in a daze, mind racing. Audrey had actively worked with Mom to rob me, all while posting on social media about how excited she was for her wedding, how blessed she felt, how much she loved her family. The manipulation was breathtaking. That afternoon, I forwarded Peter's screenshots to Detective Bella. She called me 20 minutes later. Mr. Callahan, these messages changed things significantly. If Audrey knowingly participated in planning the fraud, we can charge her as an accomplice. Are you prepared for that? I thought about all the times Audrey had gotten away with things growing up. The lies, the stolen money when we were kids, the time she wrecked my car and blamed it on me. Mom had always protected her, always made excuses. Yes, I said. Charge her. The following week was chaos. Detective Bella brought Audrey in for questioning Monday morning. Based on the text messages Peter provided, they had enough evidence to charge her as an accomplice to fraud. She was arrested Tuesday afternoon. My phone exploded with messages from family members. Again, all of them were outraged that I'd let the police arrest Audrey, like I'd personally showed up with handcuffs. The best part? Mom's lawyer called me Wednesday, his tone completely different from before. Professional panic. Mr. Callahan, given the recent developments with your sister's arrest, my client would like to propose a settlement. She'll return the full $15,000 immediately and cover all your legal costs. In exchange, no. Mr. Callahan, please listen. I said no. Your client had multiple chances to make this right. Now she gets to face the consequences. The prosecutor is talking about jail time, potentially 2 to 5 years for fraud and identity theft. Is that really what you want for your mother? What I want is for her to be held accountable, for once in her life. And honestly, what I wanted was to stop getting phone calls from expensive lawyers who bill by the minute. He tried a few more angles, family healing, fresh starts, thinking about the bigger picture. I shut all of it down. Finally, he sighed heavily. You're making a serious mistake, Mr. Callahan. This will haunt you. Nah, I can live with it. Friday afternoon brought the moment I'd been waiting for. Detective Bella called with an update. Mr. Callahan, your mother has been formally charged with credit card fraud, identity theft, and felony theft. Your sister's been charged as an accomplice. They're both looking at significant jail time if convicted. However, the prosecutor's office has indicated they'd be open to a plea deal if both defendants show remorse and make full restitution. What kind of plea deal? Probation, community service, criminal record, no jail time if they cooperate and pay everything back immediately. But there's a catch. They'd have to allocate in court. Admit what they did publicly. Allocution meant standing before a judge and confessing their crimes on the record. Public humiliation, legal consequences, and a permanent criminal record. When would this happen? Hearings scheduled for Monday. Both your mother and sister would need to agree to the terms by the end of day today. Otherwise, this goes to trial. I thanked her and hung up. Then I waited. Wondered if Mom would swallow her pride and take the deal, or if her ego would force a trial. My phone rang 2 hours later. Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times, then left a message. Her voice was shaking. Nick, please pick up. We need to talk about Monday. The lawyer says, he says we should take the plea deal. that we don't have a choice, but that means admitting everything in court. Everyone will know. Please, there has to be another way. Call me back. I didn't respond. Saturday morning, Audrey tried calling from a different number, probably a friend's phone since I'd blocked her. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail too. Nick, it's me. Look, I know you're angry, but please don't let this go to court. Peter left me. The wedding's canceled. All my friends know what happened. I've lost everything. I'm begging you to drop the charges. I'll pay you back myself, I promise. I'll get a job. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please don't make us go through with this. Her voice cracked at the end. Then she sobbed. Part of me felt a twinge of something. Not quite sympathy, but maybe pity. Then I remembered her text to Mom. Nick's too passive to actually follow through. I didn't respond. Turns out I'm extremely passive. Passively watching this whole thing unfold from the comfort of my couch. Monday morning, I showed up at the courthouse. Detective Bella had told me I didn't have to be there, but I wanted to see this through. I wanted to watch them face what they'd done. Call it closure, call it petty. I call it both. The courtroom was small, filled with the usual mix of defendants, lawyers, and family members. I sat in the back row. Mom and Audrey were in the front with their lawyer, both dressed like they were attending a funeral. Audrey's eyes red from crying, going for that sympathetic defendant look. Cute. The judge, an older woman named Harper, called the case. Mom and Audrey stood as the charges were read out loud. Judge Harper looked at them over her glasses. How do you plead? The lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, both defendants wish to enter guilty pleas and accept the prosecution's plea agreement. Very well. Mrs. Callahan. Miss Callahan, you understand that by pleading guilty, you're admitting to these crimes on the record? That you'll have a criminal history? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, Your Honor. Audrey just nodded, unable to speak. Then allocate. Tell me what you did. This was it. The moment of truth. Mom took a shaky breath and began speaking, her voice hollow. I entered my son's apartment without permission in the middle of the night. I took his credit card from his desk. I used it to make charges totaling $15,000 for my daughter's wedding expenses. I did this knowing he had refused to give me the money. I did this intentionally and without his consent. Judge Harper turned to Audrey. And you, Miss Callahan? Audrey's voice cracked. I helped plan it. I told my mother where my brother kept his credit card. I knew the money was being taken without permission. I spent that money on my wedding knowing it was stolen. The courtroom was silent. Judge Harper stared at them for a long moment. Beautiful. This court accepts your guilty pleas. You'll each serve 3 years probation, complete 200 hours of community service, and make restitution of $15,000 with an initial payment due in 30 days and the remainder on a probation schedule. You'll also attend court-ordered counseling. Any violation of probation terms will result in immediate jail time. They both nodded, humiliated. As everyone filed out of the courtroom, Mom caught sight of me in the back row. Our eyes met. Hers were filled with tears, with defeat, with something that might have been regret. I felt, well, dandy. Outside the courthouse, Audrey tried to approach me. Her lawyer pulled her back, probably afraid she'd make things worse. She called out anyway. Nick, please can we talk? I walked to my car without responding, got in, and drove away. 3 days after the court hearing, my phone started ringing again. Mom first, then Audrey, then various family members. All of them wanting to talk, to work things out, to move past this. I ignored all of them for 48 hours. Let them stew in the consequences of their actions. Let them wonder if I'd ever speak to them again. Then Friday morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Answered it out of curiosity. Is this Nick Callahan? A woman's voice, professional and clipped. Yeah. Who's this? I'm Jennifer Walters from Cornerstone Bank. I'm calling regarding Eleanor Callahan and Audrey Callahan. They've listed you as a point of contact for a loan application. My blood ran cold. What loan application? They're applying for a joint personal loan of $15,000 to make restitution payment to you as ordered by the court. However, given their recent criminal convictions, the application has been flagged. We need to verify some information with you. So they were trying to get a loan to pay me back, probably at a terrible interest rate which they'd then blame me for somehow. I could already hear it. Nick forced us to take out a predatory loan. I'm not involved in their financial decisions, I said firmly. Whatever they choose to do is their business. Understood. I just needed to confirm you're the victim in their fraud case. We've verified through public records, so that's all I needed. Thank you for your time. She hung up. I sat there thinking. The 30-day deadline for restitution was approaching, and they didn't have the money. Mom probably couldn't access her trust fund yet, and Audrey had no income. Good. That afternoon, I finally called my dad. Nick, been trying to reach you, saw the court records. Heck of a week. You could say that. Listen, I need to know about executing the forfeiture clause in Grandpa's trust. Mom was convicted of fraud against me. That triggers the clause, right? He was quiet for a moment. Yeah, it does. You want to go through with it? Yeah, I want to enforce it. I'll send you the trustee documentation. You'll need to file notice with the court and the trust administrator. Takes about 60 days to process, but once it's done, her share gets redistributed. You'll get the largest portion since you're the victim. And Audrey? Her share's tied to the same clause. If she's convicted of fraud against family, she loses it too. Both of them forfeit a combined $225,000. I let that sink in. 225 grand. More than enough to cover what they'd stolen from me 15 times over. Do it, I said. File the paperwork. That evening, I drove to my mom's house for the first time since the theft. Didn't go inside. Just sat in my car across the street watching. The lights were on. I could see shadows moving around inside. Wondered what they were saying, if they were fighting, if they were crying. Probably planning which relative to guilt trip next. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. I know you're outside. Please come in. We need to talk. Of course she'd seen me. Woman had eyes like a hawk. I got out of the car and walked to the front door. It opened before I could knock. Mom stood there looking like she'd aged 10 years and 2 weeks. I stepped inside. Audrey was on the couch looking equally wrecked. We need to discuss the restitution payment, Mom said, gesturing to the dining room table covered in papers. Loan applications, budget spreadsheets, bank statements. We don't have $15,000 in liquid cash. The bank's offering a loan, but the interest rate is 23%. It'll take us 5 years to pay it off. Not my problem, I said flatly. Audrey's head snapped up. What do you mean, not your problem? You're the one who pressed charges? You're the one who put us in this position. No, you're the ones who stole from me. How can you be so heartless? Audrey stood up, voice rising. Family forgives each other. You're supposed to… I'm supposed to what? I cut her off. Let you rob me and say thank you? That's not how family works, Audrey. That's how abuse works. And also, pretty sure the family doesn't case your apartment like a heist movie. But maybe I missed that Hallmark special. Mom held up a hand. Everyone calm down. Nick, please. There has to be a way we can work this out. What if we set up a payment plan with you directly? Smaller amounts over time? You mean like the 12-month plan your lawyer proposed? That I already rejected? We're desperate, Mom said. And for once, there was no manipulation in her voice. If we take this loan, we'll be in debt for years. Audrey can't find work with a criminal record. I might lose my job when they run the background check for my renewal certification. We're drowning here. I looked at both of them, at the ruins of their lives. Part of me felt satisfaction, but another part of me, the part that remembered family dinners and birthday parties and Mom teaching me to ride a bike, felt a flicker of something. Not forgiveness, not yet. Maybe never, but something softer than pure rage. Here's what's going to happen, I said slowly. You're going to take that loan. You're going to pay me back every penny within 30 days like the court ordered. And then you're both going to therapy. Real therapy, not court-mandated counseling. You're going to figure out why you thought it was okay to treat me like your personal ATM for 25 years. Audrey opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. And if you actually do the work, actually change, actually show real remorse over the course of several years, maybe we can rebuild something. But it won't be what it was. It'll never be what it was. Because that version of our family was built on you two using me, and I'm done being used. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Nick, please. There's something else. The trust fund. Your father mentioned you're enforcing the forfeiture clause. That's our future. That's our security. So Dad had already contacted them. Good. Yeah. You committed fraud against me. Grandpa's trust is clear about what happens when you do that. That's $200,000, Audrey shouted. That's my inheritance. You can't just take it. I'm not taking it. You're forfeiting it. Big difference. Grandpa saw this coming. He knew what you both were capable of and built in protection for the family. Now that protection's being triggered because you proved him right. Mom sank into a chair, face in her hands. We'll have nothing. No savings. No nest egg. Nothing. You'll have what everyone else has. What you earn through your own work. Welcome to how the rest of us live. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Audrey's quiet crying. I felt no triumph. Just a weird emptiness, like closing the door on a chapter of my life I'd never wanted to write in the first place. I'm going now, I said, heading toward the door. You've got 27 days to make the restitution payment. After that, we'll see. Nick, wait. Mom's voice stopped me at the threshold. Do you hate us? I turned back, saw not the manipulative mother who'd stolen from me, but a broken woman who'd destroyed her own family through greed and favoritism. No, I said honestly. I don't hate you. I just don't trust you. And I don't know if I ever will again. That's on you to fix, not me. I walked out, got in my car, and drove away. 4 weeks later, the initial restitution payment hit my account on the last possible day before they'd be in violation of probation. I deposited it, watched my savings balance return to where it should be, and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. 2 months after that, the trust forfeiture was finalized. I received a check for $140,000, my share of the redistributed funds. Put it in a high-yield savings account and didn't touch it. That money was my future, my emergency fund, my security blanket that no one could steal. Well, they could try. But we've established how that works out. Mom texted me occasionally. Updates about her therapy sessions, apologies that felt more genuine each time. Small attempts to rebuild a bridge between us. I responded sometimes. Short, polite, but distant. Audrey stopped reaching out after I didn't respond to her 5th or 6th apology text. Heard through family that Peter had moved to another state, that she was working at a call center trying to rebuild her life. Good. She needed to learn what actual work felt like. They'd tried to drown me with their entitlement and manipulation. Instead, they drowned themselves. And me? I learned to swim. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Story 6. At Thanksgiving, my mom mocked me. You still driving that old truck? My parents and brother laughed, but what they didn't know was that I owned 15 trucks and ran my own company. So I paid cash for a mansion and exposed my brother's 6-figure debt. Now they're begging. Hey Reddit, I've been putting off writing this for months, but after everything that went down at Thanksgiving, I need to get this off my chest. This is going to be long, but trust me, it's worth the read. I'm 34 male, and for the past 15 years, my family has treated me like the biggest disappointment in 3 generations. Why? Because I chose what they call a boring career in logistics and transportation. While my younger brother Kevin, 29, has been jumping from one get-rich-quick scheme to another, I've been quietly building something real, something they never bothered to ask about. But let me start from the beginning, because the family dynamics didn't just appear overnight. Growing up, our parents, Mom 58 and Dad 61, made it crystal clear who the golden child was. Kevin was the charismatic one, the social butterfly, the kid who could charm teachers into giving him extensions and talk his way out of trouble. Me, I was the quiet, methodical one who actually did his homework on time and never caused drama. You'd think parents would appreciate having one easy kid, right? Wrong. Apparently, being reliable is boring. Being responsible is forgettable. Kevin's wild stories about sneaking out, getting caught drinking, or failing tests because he was too busy living life became dinner table entertainment. My story about getting promoted to shift supervisor at the warehouse where I worked summers? That's nice, honey. Kevin, tell us about that girl you met at the beach. The pattern was set early and it never changed. Kevin was the star. I was the supporting character in my own family's story. When I graduated high school, I had a choice. I could take out massive student loans to go to college like Kevin did, majoring in something impractical like communications while partying for 4 years. Or I could start working full-time at the logistics company where I'd been doing part-time work, learning the business from the ground up. I chose the latter. Big mistake, according to my family. You're wasting your potential, Mom said when I told them my decision. Look at Kevin, he's going to get a real education, make real connections. You're going to be stuck loading trucks your whole life. Dad was worse. I didn't work 60-hour weeks so my son could waste his life in some warehouse. Kevin's going to be somebody. He's got ambition. The thing is, I did have ambition. Huge ambition. I just wasn't interested in broadcasting it to people who wouldn't understand anyway. I started at Peterson Logistics making $12 an hour sorting packages. But I paid attention to everything. How the routes were organized, which drivers were efficient, why certain deliveries always ran late, how fuel costs affected profitability. I asked questions. I volunteered for overtime. I learned how to drive the big rigs during slow periods. Within 2 years, I was a dispatcher. Within 4, I was managing routes for the entire Northeast corridor. By year 6, I was assistant operations manager, making more money than Kevin would see for years after college. But did my family know or care? Hell no. Every family gathering was the same routine. Kevin would waltz in with stories about his fraternity, his internships, his big plans after graduation. Meanwhile, I'd get the obligatory, "How's the truck driving going, Mike?" followed by immediate topic changes. The worst part was how they'd introduce me to people. "This is our son, Mike. He works in transportation. And this is Kevin. He's studying business at State, going to run his own company someday." Kevin, meanwhile, was accumulating debt like it was a hobby. Student loans, credit cards, that car his parents co-signed for because he needed something reliable for his internships. But hey, at least he wasn't just driving trucks like his boring brother. After Kevin graduated, the comparisons got even worse. He bounced from job to job, each one supposedly a stepping stone to bigger things. Sales associate at a tech startup that folded in 6 months. Marketing coordinator at a wellness company that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. Account manager at a firm that laid him off after 8 months. But every failure was spun as experience and networking and finding his passion. Meanwhile, I'd been promoted to operations manager, was earning a 6-figure salary, and had started making plans to break out on my own. The truck thing became their favorite running joke. I drove a 2003 Chevy Silverado that I'd bought, used, and maintained meticulously. It wasn't pretty, but it was reliable and paid off. To them, it was proof that I'd never amount to anything. "Mike, when are you going to get a real car?" Kevin would ask at every family barbecue, standing next to his leased BMW that cost more per month than my mortgage payment. "That thing's older than some of my coworkers," Mom would chime in with her concerned voice. "Honey, I worry about you driving that old truck. What if it breaks down? Don't you want something newer, something that shows you're doing well?" The answer was always the same. The truck worked fine. I didn't care about impressing people, and I had better things to spend money on. They'd exchange those looks, the ones that said, "Poor Mike, no ambition, no pride in his appearance." If they'd bothered to ask what those better things were, they might have learned something interesting, like the fact that I was saving every possible penny, learning everything I could about the trucking industry, and identifying opportunities that bigger companies were too slow or too arrogant to see. The independent contractor drivers who worked with Peterson were always complaining about the same things: unreliable dispatch, poor route planning, equipment that broke down constantly, and companies that treated them like disposable assets instead of partners. I saw a business opportunity. When I was 28, I made my move. I left Peterson and started M&D Transport with my buddy Danny, who'd been driving for 15 years and knew every highway, truck stop, and shortcut between Maine and Florida. We started with one truck, a used Peterbilt that we bought with our combined savings and a small business loan. Our model was simple: treat drivers like partners, maintain equipment properly, use technology for efficient routing, and build relationships with shippers who valued reliability over rock-bottom prices. We targeted medium-distance hauls that the big companies found less profitable, but we could handle efficiently. The first year was brutal. 18-hour days, sleeping in the truck cab, eating gas station food, and wondering if we'd made the biggest mistake of our lives. But by month 10, we were consistently profitable. By year 2, we had 3 trucks. By year 4, we had 8 trucks and were consistently booked solid. My family had no idea. None. Not because I was hiding it, but because they never asked specifics about my work. When they asked how the truck driving was going, I'd say fine or busy, and they'd immediately pivot to Kevin's latest venture or relationship drama. The contrast with Kevin's career was becoming comical. While I was building a legitimate business with real assets and steady growth, he was chasing trends and get-rich-quick schemes. First, it was cryptocurrency day trading. Then, it was drop-shipping products from China. Then, it was becoming a social media influencer for entrepreneur lifestyle content. Each new venture came with big announcements at family dinners. Kevin would explain his brilliant new strategy, complete with projected earnings and plans for scaling up. Our parents would ooh and ah and ask detailed questions and tell everyone they knew about Kevin's latest innovative business idea. Meanwhile, I'd quietly grown M&D Transport to 15 trucks, employed 22 people, and was generating annual revenue that would have shocked them speechless if they'd known. But truck driving was boring, so they never asked for details. The mansion purchase was what finally broke the camel's back. By last year, the business was doing well enough that I started looking for a house to buy. Not just any house. I wanted something that reflected what I'd built. Something that said, "I made it," without having to say it out loud. I found a 6,800 square foot colonial on 12 acres, about 20 minutes from where I grew up. It wasn't ostentatious, but it was unmistakably successful. 5 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, gourmet kitchen, 3-car garage, pool, and a view that went on for miles. The price tag was $1.2 million. I paid cash. No mortgage, no financing, no debt. Just a wire transfer from my business account to theirs. Did I tell my family immediately? Of course not. Why break a 15-year streak of them not being interested in my life? I moved in quietly over a weekend in September. Danny and some of the other guys from work helped me move furniture and get settled. We had a barbecue that first Saturday night, sitting on my back deck, looking out over my property, and talking about how far we'd come since those early days of sleeping in truck cabs. The plan was to tell my family at Thanksgiving. Not make a big announcement, just casually mention that I'd bought a house and see how long it took them to ask where or what kind. I figured it would be amusing to watch their assumptions play out. But Kevin beat me to the punch with his own Thanksgiving announcement. 2 weeks before the holiday, Mom called with exciting news. Kevin has something wonderful to share with everyone at Thanksgiving. He's finally found his calling. He's starting an import business, bringing artisanal goods from South America to boutique stores here. He's already got investors lined up. Great, I thought. Another Kevin venture for everyone to fawn over while I sat quietly eating turkey and mashed potatoes. But this one felt different. Mom was more excited than usual, and she kept mentioning how Kevin had really done his research this time, and how the numbers looked amazing, and how this could be the big break he's been working toward. I figured I'd let Kevin have his moment, then casually mention my house purchase afterward. What I didn't expect was for the whole thing to blow up in the most spectacular way possible. Thanksgiving started normally enough. Kevin showed up in his BMW, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He was practically bouncing with excitement, barely able to contain whatever big announcement he was planning. I arrived in my trusty Silverado, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt. The reactions were predictable. "Mike, you're still driving that old truck?" Kevin laughed, shaking his head. "Dude, it's embarrassing. What are you, too cheap to buy something from this decade?" Dad chimed in with his concerned parent voice. "Son, that truck's got to be costing you more in repairs than a car payment would. Wouldn't it make sense to get something reliable?" "It is reliable," I said, same as always. "Runs fine, gets me where I need to go." They exchanged those familiar looks. Poor Mike, no pride, no ambition, driving around in that old beater like he's still 25. During dinner, Kevin couldn't wait any longer. He practically vibrated with excitement as he cleared his throat for his big announcement. "Everyone, I have incredible news. I found my calling, my big break, the business opportunity I've been waiting for." He paused dramatically. "I'm launching Artisan Imports, specializing in handcrafted goods from South American artisans. Think pottery, textiles, jewelry, all authentic, all unique, all targeted at high-end boutique stores." The table erupted in excitement. Mom started crying happy tears. Dad raised his wine glass for a toast. My aunt and uncle asked detailed questions about the business model, the market opportunity, the growth potential. Kevin ate it up. He explained how he'd identified an underserved niche, how he'd already connected with artisans in Peru and Colombia, how he'd lined up potential retail partners. He pulled out his phone and showed pictures of beautiful pottery and colorful textiles. "The initial investment is significant," he said, "but the profit margins are incredible. We're talking about 400% markups on authentic artisan goods that cost almost nothing to produce but retail for premium prices here." "How much initial investment?" Dad asked. Kevin's smile got even bigger. "I need $180,000 to get started. Inventory, shipping, business licenses, marketing, the whole package. But I've already got investors who believe in the vision." Mom squeezed his hand. "We're so proud of you, Kevin. This sounds amazing." Then Kevin dropped the bomb. "Actually, Mom and Dad are my lead investors. They're putting in $120,000 to get things started. They believe in me that much." The table went quiet. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. $120,000. That was a huge chunk of money for my parents, who lived comfortably but had never been wealthy. Where did they get that kind of cash? Dad cleared his throat. "We took out a home equity loan. Kevin's business plan is so solid, we couldn't pass up the opportunity to be part of his success." My stomach dropped. They'd borrowed against their house to fund Kevin's latest scheme. Their house, the one they'd worked 30 years to pay off, was now collateral for Kevin's import business. But everyone else was still celebrating. My aunt called it a smart investment in family. My uncle praised Kevin's entrepreneurial spirit. My cousin asked if Kevin needed any additional investors. That's when Mom turned to me with her familiar pitying smile. "Mike, honey, you should think about Kevin's business. Maybe there's a way you could be involved too. Your truck driving contacts might know people who need authentic decorative pieces for their offices." The whole table chuckled. "Yeah, let me ask the warehouse guys if they want $200 Peruvian pottery for their break rooms." Actually, I said quietly, I've got some news too. Kevin barely looked up from his phone, where he was showing more product photos. What's that? I bought a house. That's nice, Mom said absently, focused on Kevin's phone screen. Where? Riverside Estates. Now I had their attention. Riverside Estates was the nicest neighborhood in our area. Houses there started at $800,000 and went up from there. Kevin looked up from his phone. You mean like a condo in Riverside? I didn't know they had any affordable units there. Not a condo, a house. 6,800 square feet, 12 acres. Dead silence. Dad frowned. What do you mean you bought a house there? Those places cost $1.2 million. Paid cash. You could have heard a pin drop. Kevin's mouth hung open. Mom's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. Dad just stared at me like I'd announced I was actually an alien. That's not possible, Kevin said finally. You drive trucks. There's no way you have that kind of money. I pulled out my phone and showed them the real estate listing I'd saved. Their faces went through a range of expressions as they scrolled through pictures of my kitchen, my master suite, my 3-car garage, my pool. How? Dad whispered. I own a trucking company, M&D Transport. 15 trucks, 22 employees, $7 million in annual revenue. Kevin's face went white. What? I've owned it for 6 years. Started with 1 truck, built it up. We specialize in medium haul freight, focus on reliability and customer service. It's been pretty successful. The questions came rapid fire after that. How long had I owned a company? Why didn't I tell them? What exactly did the business do? How much money was I making? I answered everything honestly. How I'd seen an opportunity and seized it. How I'd reinvested profits back into the business instead of spending money on flashy cars or expensive clothes. How I'd built something real and sustainable instead of chasing get-rich-quick schemes. Kevin got more agitated with every answer. This doesn't make sense. You've been driving that old truck, living in that tiny apartment. I moved out of the apartment 3 months ago. The truck's for sentimental reasons. It was my first work vehicle, and I never saw the point in flashy displays when I was building a business. That's when Kevin made his biggest mistake. Instead of congratulating me or asking how I'd done it, he got defensive and angry. This is bullshit, he snapped. You're making this up to steal attention from my announcement. Show me proof. I showed him proof. Bank statements, business registration documents, photos of my trucks with the company logo. Kevin's face got redder with each piece of evidence. You've been lying to us for years, he accused. Pretending to be some poor truck driver while you're actually rich? What kind of sick game is that? I never lied about anything. You all just never bothered to ask specifics about my work. Every time someone asked how the truck driving was going, I said busy or going well, and you'd immediately change the subject to Kevin's latest venture. Mom looked hurt. But honey, why didn't you tell us? Tell you what, that I owned a business. I tried to talk about work at family dinners for years. Remember when I mentioned expanding operations? You said, that's nice, Kevin. Tell us about your internship. Remember when I talked about hiring more drivers? Dad changed the subject to ask Kevin about his grades. The room was getting tense. My uncle tried to lighten the mood by asking about the house, but Kevin wasn't done. This is typical Mike, he said bitterly. Always has to one-up everyone. Can't stand that I finally found something big, so he has to make up some fantasy about being successful. That pushed me over the edge. Makeup? Kevin, you want to talk about financial reality? Let's talk about it. I pulled out my phone and opened the business credit monitoring app I used to check on potential clients and partners. What's your social security number, Kevin? Why? Let's see how financially successful you really are. Kevin went pale. That's private. Come on, big successful entrepreneur. Nothing to hide, right? Dad stepped in. Boys, let's not. But I was done being the quiet, dismissed brother. Kevin's been talking about his big import business, how it's going to make him rich. Let me guess. You've never actually run a business before, have you? Never had employees, never had to make payroll, never had to manage cash flow? Kevin's silence was answer enough. I continued. And this $180,000 you need. That's not just for inventory, is it? That's to pay off your existing debt so you can start fresh. More silence. How much debt are you in, Kevin? Credit cards, student loans, car lease, all of it. Kevin stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. But I was just getting started. Because I'm guessing it's significant. The BMW lease, the expensive apartment, the designer clothes, the lifestyle you can't actually afford. What's the total? 60,000? 80? Kevin's face was red with rage and embarrassment. Shut up, Mike! Higher! Jesus, Kevin, how much? That's when he cracked. It's not that much. The credit cards are only at $43,000. And the student loans are almost paid down to $67,000, and the car is just $18,000 left. And he stopped, realizing he'd just confessed to being over $128,000 in debt in front of the entire family. The silence was deafening. Dad's face went through several color changes. $128,000 in debt? Kevin, you told us you were financially stable. You said the business investment was going to make us all rich. Mom looked like she might faint. You didn't tell us about any debt when you asked us to invest. Kevin tried to recover. It's not debt, it's leveraging. All successful entrepreneurs use leverage. The import business will pay everything off and more. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Kevin, do you know what happens to most import businesses in their first year? Do you know anything about international trade regulations, customs procedures, currency exchange risks, or seasonal demand fluctuations? He didn't answer. Have you actually talked to any retailers about carrying your products? Do you have signed agreements, purchase orders, anything concrete? Still nothing. Because from where I sit, this looks like another one of your schemes. Except this time, you've convinced our parents to risk their house on it. Dad stood up slowly. Kevin, is that true? Is this another get-rich-quick idea? Kevin's voice got smaller. I've done research. I've looked at market opportunities. The profit margins are real. Have you ever imported anything before? I pressed. Do you know how to handle customs clearance? Do you understand the tax implications? Have you researched your competition? Each question hit like a hammer. Kevin's confident entrepreneur facade crumbled piece by piece. Finally, he exploded. Not everyone can be perfect like you, Mike. Not everyone can just magically build a successful business. Some of us have to try different things. Take risks. Taking risks with your own money is one thing, I shot back. Risking our parents' house because you're too proud to get a regular job is something else entirely. The family dinner was officially ruined. Kevin stormed out, slamming doors and peeling out of the driveway in his leased BMW. The rest of us sat in uncomfortable silence, picking at our cooling turkey. Dad finally spoke up. Mike, we owe you an apology. We haven't been fair to you. Mom was crying. I had no idea you'd built something so successful. I'm so sorry we never asked, never paid attention, but I wasn't interested in apologies anymore. I was interested in protecting my parents from financial disaster. Dad, you need to cancel that home equity loan immediately. Don't give Kevin a penny. But we already signed the papers. The money's already been transferred to Kevin's business account. My heart sank. How much? The full $120,000. He said he needed it right away to secure the initial inventory shipments. I closed my eyes. Kevin had taken $120,000 of their home equity, and knowing Kevin, it was probably already spent on paying down his debts, not on any legitimate business expenses. I need to make some calls, I said. Over the next 3 days, I did more research into Kevin's artisan imports business than he'd apparently done himself. What I found was exactly what I expected. No business license, no registered company, no signed agreements with South American suppliers, no contracts with U.S. retailers. Just a fancy business plan he'd probably copied from a template online. The $120,000 was gone, spent on exactly what I'd suspected. He'd used $78,000 to pay off his credit cards and make a big dent in his student loans. Another $25,000 went to paying off his car lease early so he could buy it outright. The remaining $17,000 had been spent on what he called business development, which appeared to be a trip to Peru to take photos of pottery for his fake business presentation. When I presented this information to my parents, Dad literally aged 10 years in front of me. Mom started making calls to their bank, their lawyer, anyone who might be able to help them get their money back. But the money was gone. Kevin had spent it, and there was no legitimate business to show for it. Worse, the home equity loan meant they now had a monthly payment of almost $800, and they were both retired on fixed incomes. That's when the begging started. First, it was Mom calling, crying about how they might lose the house, how they'd trusted Kevin and now they didn't know what to do, how they were too old to start over financially. Then it was Dad, taking a different approach, talking about family responsibility, how successful family members should help struggling ones, how I had more money than I could ever spend, and they just needed help getting back on their feet. Kevin stayed away for 2 weeks, then started sending text messages, first apologizing, then explaining, then justifying, then begging. He'd learned about my business, about my house, about my actual financial situation, and suddenly I was his potential savior. The texts started reasonable. I'm sorry I doubted you. I had no idea you'd built something so successful. I'm proud of you. then moved to explanatory. The import business is still viable. I just need more time to develop the supplier relationships. The Peru trip was research, not vacation. Then got desperate. Mike, I know I messed up, but I can fix this. If you loan me just $50,000, I can make the import business work and pay back mom and dad. And finally became pathetic. Please don't let mom and dad lose their house because of my mistakes. You're the only one who can help them now. I ignored all of it. Instead, I hired a forensic accountant to trace exactly where the $120,000 had gone. I wanted documentation of every dollar before deciding how to handle the situation. The results were damning. Not only had Kevin spent the money exactly as I'd suspected, but he'd also been lying about his financial situation for years. The $128,000 in debt he'd admitted to at Thanksgiving was actually over $180,000 when you included debts to friends, family, and some questionable payday loan companies. Armed with this information, I made a decision. I called a family meeting at my new house. I wanted them to see what actual success looked like, what building something real over time could accomplish. They arrived on a cold December Sunday, looking small and overwhelmed as they walked through my front door. Mom gasped at the foyer, the grand staircase, the view through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Dad just looked around in quiet amazement. Kevin came too, tail between his legs, humble for maybe the first time in his adult life. I laid out everything on my dining room table. Bank records showing Kevin's spending. Business registration documents showing there was no artisan imports company. Credit reports showing the full extent of his debts. Here's the situation, I said. Kevin took your $120,000 and spent it paying off his own debts, not starting any business. He owes over $180,000 total when you include everything. There is no import business, no South American suppliers, no retail partnerships. Mom started crying again. Dad looked like he wanted to strangle Kevin, but I wasn't done. However, I continued, I'm prepared to make you an offer. They all looked up hopefully. Kevin will sign over power of attorney to me for all his financial affairs. He'll move back in with you, get a regular job, and follow a strict budget that I create. Every penny he earns above basic living expenses goes toward paying you back. Kevin started to protest, but I held up my hand. In exchange, I'll pay off your home equity loan, $120,000, transferred to your bank tomorrow morning. Your house is safe. The relief on my parents' faces was immediate. But Kevin looked panicked. Mike, I can't sign over power of attorney. I'm an adult. I have rights. You have the right to declare bankruptcy and let mom and dad lose their house? I agreed. Your choice. He tried a different approach. What about my business plans? What about my potential? I laughed. Kevin, you're 29 years old and you've never held a job for more than 8 months. You've never successfully completed any business venture. You just stole $120,000 from our retired parents to pay off your credit card debt. Your potential is to work at a regular job like a normal person. But I'm an entrepreneur. No, you're a scammer who finally ran out of victims. That was harsh, but it needed to be said. For 15 years, I'd watched my family enable Kevin's delusions while dismissing my actual accomplishments. Someone had to inject reality into the situation. Kevin signed the papers. Not happily, but he signed them. The next morning, I transferred $120,000 to my parents' bank account to pay off their home equity loan. That afternoon, I moved Kevin into a studio apartment near a distribution center where I'd arranged a job for him as a warehouse associate. Starting salary, $16 an hour. The same job I'd started with 15 years earlier. Over the next few months, the family dynamic completely shifted. My parents, grateful and embarrassed, started showing genuine interest in my business. They asked questions, visited my facilities, met my employees. For the first time in my adult life, they seemed proud of what I'd built. Kevin, meanwhile, was learning what actual work looked like. 40 hours a week, time clocks, supervisors, overtime when necessary. No flexible schedule, no creative freedom, no get-rich-quick schemes. He hated every minute of it. But he was paying off his debt, $400 per week after basic living expenses. At that rate, he'd pay back the $120,000 in about 6 years, plus interest. The best part was watching him realize what I'd known all along. Building something real takes time, patience, and consistent effort. There are no shortcuts to genuine success. My parents now introduce me as our son Mike, who owns a successful trucking company. They ask about my employees, my business challenges, my expansion plans. They're genuinely interested in my life for the first time since I was 12 years old. Kevin still sends me occasional texts about business opportunities and investment ideas. I ignore them all. He's got 6 years of warehouse work ahead of him, and maybe by the end of it, he'll understand the difference between actual entrepreneurship and fantasy. Update 1. Kevin lasted exactly 4 months at the warehouse job before quitting, because manual labor is beneath him. He's now working at a call center and complaining that the customers are rude. Some people never learn. Update 2. Since a few people asked for more details about how things played out with Kevin, here's the full story of his spectacular failure to adult properly. Those first 4 months at the warehouse were entertaining. I'd set up the job through a contact of mine who manages the distribution center, so I got regular updates on Kevin's performance. Week 1, Kevin showed up in business casual clothes like he was heading to a corporate meeting. Had to be told multiple times that khakis and button-downs weren't appropriate for loading trucks. Complained that the uniform polo shirts were not his style, and asked if he could wear his own shirts as long as they were the right color. Week 2, he started showing up late consistently. Not massively late, just 5 to 10 minutes, but enough to irritate his supervisor. When called out on it, Kevin explained that he's not really a morning person and suggested they accommodate his natural schedule by letting him start later and work later. In a job that requires coordination with truck schedules. Yeah. By week 3, Kevin had convinced himself that his college degree and business experience made him management material. He started offering unsolicited suggestions about workflow optimization and employee scheduling. His supervisor, a guy named Rodriguez, who's been doing this for 15 years, was not impressed. Rodriguez told me later, "Your brother keeps trying to redesign our entire operation based on something he read online. Kid's been here 3 weeks and thinks he knows better than people who've been doing this since before he was born." Week 4 was when Kevin discovered he actually had to do physical work, like consistently, for 8 hours straight. For 8. The job involved moving boxes that weighed up to 50 pounds, and Kevin had clearly never lifted anything heavier than his laptop. He started complaining about back pain, asked if there was a gym membership benefit so he could build up to the physical requirements, and suggested they invest in better ergonomic equipment. Month 2, Kevin tried to organize a union. Not because of legitimate workplace issues, but because he thought having union organizing experience would look good on his resume for future business ventures. The attempt lasted exactly 1 lunch break before his coworkers told him to knock it off. He also kept trying to network with truck drivers, thinking he could learn about transportation industry opportunities. Most of our drivers have been doing this for decades and could spot Kevin's BS from a mile away. One driver, Tommy, told me, "Your brother asked me if I knew about any disruptive transportation technologies he could invest in. Kid doesn't even know how to properly load a truck, but he wants to revolutionize the industry." Month 3 was when Kevin discovered that warehouse work doesn't stop for personal convenience. He requested time off for a business conference, which turned out to be a cryptocurrency seminar he'd paid $200 to attend. When told he couldn't have the time off without advance notice, he called in sick. His supervisor checked his Instagram and found photos of Kevin at the conference, networking and posting about exploring investment opportunities. The final straw came in month 4. Kevin had been assigned to train a new hire, which he saw as validation that management recognized his potential. Instead of actually training the guy, Kevin spent the shift explaining his various business ideas and trying to recruit the new employee as a potential business partner. When the new hire couldn't properly do his job because Kevin had spent 0 time actually teaching him warehouse procedures, both Kevin and the new guy got called into the supervisor's office. Kevin tried to explain that he was developing the employee's entrepreneurial mindset and that traditional training was limiting his potential. Rodriguez finally lost it, told Kevin that this was a warehouse, not a business incubator, and that his job was to move boxes, not pitch investment schemes to new employees. Kevin quit the next day, claiming the work environment was stifling his creativity and incompatible with his professional development goals.